Welcome to a fun-filled city council work session. This evening, the council will be doing a work session about the mid-year budget review in preparation of kind of a status of where we're currently at, where we're going, and then preparing for next year's budget cycle. Our budget committee is made up of the council and a number of citizen members of our budget. We do have one of our members here this evening, and that's Jack Pendleton. Thank you, sir, for being here. We also have openings on our budget committee.
4 of them.
So, I see one citizen person here.
Hey, Greg, what are you doing in May?
If you're interested, please reach out to the city recorder, and we can get you slated to be part of our budget committee. So I will turn it over to Eileen to take us through our work session today.
Thank you, Mayor Council. I'm just going to go ahead and call up Eric and Scott to the front table. They are going to present this mid-year budget review to you. As you know, this was going to be presented last week. Yes, I can.
Recording in progress.
Oh. So we were going to have this meeting 2 weeks ago, and then we had the ice storm and had to reschedule your council meeting as well as this item. So with that, I think hopefully Eric and Scott are ready, and we'll let them take it away. So we're going to cover audit, a mid-year budget review, and hopefully if we get to the long-range financial plan, hopefully we'll get to all three of those topics. If we don't, my game plan is to just continue the discussion in the regular meeting under city manager business, so we can finish the discussion then.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So we're going to kick off the mid-year budget review. We've got some slides. Everybody got their PDF copies. Make sure this. Did it go? Perfect. Okay. So the first topic is going to be our audit presentation, and I'm going to go ahead and present that to you guys. The first thing, the next slide is actually going to be more of an overview or a topic. So it's going to be the city and the URA audit. And so the first topic I'm going to talk about is basically the opinion. This is pretty much the meat and potatoes of what we're after is an audit opinion by an independent audit firm. And in fact, Grove Mueller Swank, REDW, they provided an unmodified opinion, which is basically the top of the pinnacle of the pyramid, which is what we want. We want unmodified. And that was for both the city and the URA. So in audit terms, that's the best thing that you can get in your financial statements for an audit is unmodified. If I continue on through this, what I wanted to point out was on the second page, or I'm sorry, the third page, number 3 is the responsibilities of management for the financial statements. And that's also in the audit opinion letter. This is basically just letting the readers know that it is management's responsibility. It is not the auditors, the independent auditors that are getting the numbers. It is the city's numbers. It is management's numbers that are being audited and are being represented as true and factual to what the city represents at year end. And that's pretty much the highlights of the audit report that they provide. Now, I was not here for the entire year, so there are a lot of numbers that are going through this thing that I was not privy to as of 6:30. However, I just wanted to let you know that as we go through the audit report, nothing is jumping out except for a few things I wanted to touch base on, and that's actually towards the end of the footnotes, in which is required by Oregon minimum standards. So it's a state thing that basically says if any of our funds overexpended during the year, that must be called out. And we had one fund that was overexpended during the year by $6,000. That is very immaterial. However, it doesn't matter if it's $1 or if it's $100,000 or $1 million, it still must be recorded. That was in the general fund under court. $6,000, again, is very immaterial. I would not dwell on that, and I would not concentrate on that by any stretch of the imagination. It is just a requirement that is to be in there. What that does is it does trigger at the very end of the financial statements, which is a letter that goes to the Secretary of State over compliance. And the only thing that happens in that letter is basically calling out that there was an overexpenditure in one of the funds at year end, and there's nothing else that needs to be done. It is just called out in that compliance letter in the very last 2 pages. If it was egregious and there was something that was considerably wrong, then we would have to wind up making a report to the Secretary of State that says how we can remedy that situation. However, again, it's not egregious, it's not big, and so therefore there's nothing to really do about it. It's just next year our goal is to try to make sure that we don't have over expenditures. The federal compliance report is the next thing I wanted to bring to your attention, and that's actually the federal single audit. Now, this year, there was really no expenditures that exceeded the $750,000 amount to actually cause a single audit. However, because we received ARPA dollars, that was one of the things that triggered what was considered a modified type single audit, which means that just ARPA dollars got looked at. There were no findings through that, so basically what it means is that what we spent was A-okay with the federal government. So if we ever are in a situation with the federal government coming to look at us, we should fly through with no problems there as well. Okay, the Urban Renewal Agency single audit, again, it's similar. We had an unmodified opinion, and there was nothing really major in that one. There was nothing that basically stood out in that audit, which is why we have no other reports or other information from the auditors in regards to that. And then the last thing I'd like to touch on is what we call the governance letter. And the governance letter goes to those that are sitting above management at the city, and that would be you folks right here. You are the governance, you oversee management, and you make sure that we're doing what we should be doing. In this letter, it basically advises you or tells you 2 things I wanted to point out was what significant risks that the auditors identify in the audit. This was a change that happened probably within the last couple of years that came down from AICPA, you know, the people that oversee CPAs, oversee firms, independent audit firms. And what they wanted to do was change the governance letter to say, here is a significant risk that has been identified for the audit. They wanted that included before the audit even occurred, which means we're looking into a crystal ball and we're trying to figure out what is risky. Usually what wound up happening is we just roll forward the prior year risks because that's what we were used to. We saw that, and that's what was put into it. In the risks that they were identified, there's always one that's going to be a risk regardless of our controls or regardless of how inherently risky the situation might be with a financial statement line item. And that is override of management control, as in I can basically override a control regardless of what we're supposed to be doing. That is always going to be a risk. That's always going to be identified. The next risk that's in our governance letter was basically stating that we have journal entries that are proposed for our gap entries. I know I'm probably speaking auditees or accountees. Generally, government funds are done on a budgetary basis. As you well know, that's a fund basis. When I say gap, that means basically what we consider GASB entries, Governmental Accounting Standard Board entries that basically get to a full accrual onto our front pages of the financial statements, i.e. You don't budget for depreciation. You don't budget for debt. You may bring in debt, and that's other financing and sources, but you don't actually put that on your books, on your fund books. So those entries are called GAAP entries or GASB entries. What they've said here was that they do not want the city to rely on the auditors for those entries. Again, this was a roll forward from probably the past few years when there was changeover in the position. I anticipate that changing over the next couple of years because I have a pretty good understanding of what GASB entries are because I've pretty much helped out other municipalities draft those and post those for their books. So I'm anticipating that to disappear in the next couple of years. There will be something new that comes along. It's just they got to feel like they're making their money too. The next thing and the last thing I'd like to present is that portion that says uncorrected and corrected misstatements. This basically draws the reader's attention or your governance attentions to. These are some of those audit adjustments that were made during the audit. We had 3 big ones, and that was basically just because of entries that they deemed to be material or something that they deemed that we should post to our books because it was big enough. A couple of these are just normal things throughout the year. And the biggest one that I saw was the purchase of 2 buses, and that was simply because when Eric came on board, he did not have enough information that instead of 2 buses, we had 4. And so that basically was just something that they found in one of our reconciliations that didn't match. And then once we found that out, we were like, well, yeah, we want to post it. So they're basically just letting you guys know here are some of the bigger items. This does not mean that these are something that causes a red flag. Again, that's why we have an unmodified opinion. With that, I'm available for questions that I can answer, but if you drill down into some of the things, hopefully my esteemed colleague to my right, your left, can dive into those a little deeper.
Thank you, Scott.
Sure.
Any questions for Scott on the audit? Yes, sir.
So what is this audit? Is the one that ended in December and then we had the extension, and so the extension was to March for last year?
Correct, yeah. This
time
fiscal year
frame.
ending was 6/30/2023. As of 12/31 is when the financial statement audit is due to the Secretary of State. All municipal governments can request an extension, and with a good reason.
Right.
And Amy Dale is more than, or John, whichever she goes by.
Right.
Allowed us an extension to what it was. I'm not sure. However, this was actually finalized on January 31st. So I believe we are actually ahead of the deadline of that extension. Everything has been filed. Everything has been paid for fees.
And our goal was to have this last year audit done in December. How are we doing on that? For this?
For fiscal year 24?
Yeah.
So far, I've scheduled our interim audit and I've scheduled our final fieldwork audit already. Whether that means it meets the 12/31 deadline without filing extension, great question. I can't see into the future of how it's going to be. This will be my first year.
Right.
I've only had six months with the city. But I'm hoping that we have plenty of back documentation for reconciliations that it should run smooth. If not, then anything that seems to pop up its ugly head, I'm probably going to have a little phone call with Eric to find out where I can find some of that information.
Okay. Is it possible to get a copy of the report? I was kind of surprised we didn't get a copy of the report to see.
You did receive a copy of it earlier.
Sent today.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was
I have
today.
it in front of me right now.
Yeah, it was just sent today.
Yeah, I was waiting on, the governance letter that I have right now is a draft. The auditors did not get me a final copy today. I was requesting it and inquiring about that today. The only thing that I see that may change is they just roll forward, they purchase software, and that software makes updates to letters. And so they try to conform to those letters. But otherwise, the biggest things are the things that I brought to your attention in the governance letter.
Okay.
Those things don't usually change. It's just sometimes there's a new the or and that are miraculously make it into it.
Okay.
But yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Patton.
I just want to make note for the record that you had said you've been here for 6 months. You've really only been here for 6 weeks. So it's good. You're all good, dude.
And speaking of when the audit will start.
Yeah, but as far as you diving into all of this stuff, you're good. Don't worry about it.
I caught that too. It's like 6 months. Wait, where did I fall asleep?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just curious, one, about I've been on the council for a number of years, and I don't remember us being overexpended before. So I want to know what that 6K in court was. And second question is totally unrelated. Do all of the department heads know how much money they have to spend right now?
Okay.
Like, does planning know what they can spend? Does Public Works know what parks can do? I just want to know if all the department heads are aware of what money is in the bank, so to speak.
Yes.
Yes.
It's in the financial reports that come out every other month.
Okay. And now back to the 6K in court.
Yep. So without getting into the system, I couldn't tell you exactly which line item was overexpended, because the way that the budget is approved for court is basically across personnel services, personnel costs, materials and services, and if there's capital outlay. So those are the three main ones. So as a combined amount, where it happened, I could not tell you. I'd have to get back to you on that if that's what you.
I'd appreciate that. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes, Jack?
Yeah, I have a couple of specific questions going through the documents that I've sent today. The first one was on page 32 of the audit, and it said we had 47 million in the local government investment pool. What is that? I mean, what funds are in there? Is that all of the SDCs and everything?
So the Oregon State Local Government Investment Pool, that's, if you think about, if I put it in simple terms, it's like a savings account that all governments, most governments participate in.
Yeah.
So anything that basically comes in from outside sources such as state, local governments, you have your federal government, anything like that goes into that state and local government pool and is accumulating interest.
Okay, so this is just money that's coming in
That
that will
we-
go back out and everything.
Correct. It's just like a savings account
Savings
because we
account.
don't want to pull that into a checking account.
Right, yeah, it's more earning interest. Okay, one of the other ones I wanted to ask about during during going through the slides, there was something that was in one of the sewer funds for 200,000 or thereabouts unforeseen capital project. I was wondering what that was.
Yeah, I've got it right here, Jack. I was able to pull it up, so can I tell you when we get to that slide?
Pardon?
Can I tell you when we get to that
Oh, okay,
slide?
if you're just gonna go through the slides, and I'll hold my other questions till we get to those.
Okay. Counselor Hensley, the cost overrun in court from last year, the 23 budget, we had attorney services at 44,000, but we actually spent 83,000.
So that's for the public defender or?
I can't see the detail for exactly what that's for.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Patton?
You would, because it just came up sort of in the discussion about the local government investment pool, at a previous Canby utility meeting, they had talked about they were involved in the local government investment pool, and then they ended up getting a much better rate at a bank somewhere else. And so I wasn't sure, as a city, are we allowed to take advantage of things like that to get better return on our cash? Or because we're a governmental agency, are we restricted as to where that money can and cannot go?
Great question. Any municipal government can go outside of LGIP is what we called it, but out of the local government investment pool. I'm surprised that the rates were better just because I know that the LGIP was actually paying out really good rates over these past few years. There was the downturn, but it's come back. However, keep in mind that because of FDIC coverages in banks, once you reach the $250,000 mark, that amounts that are greater than that have that they're not covered by that insurance. the local government investment pool actually insures those for the municipalities that are putting it in there. So there is that level of risk that you take with going outside of the LGIP.
Okay.
With the treasurer. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for Scott?
This question, you may, I don't know if you're going to answer. Oh, sorry.
Oh crap, I forgot to turn my thing on.
So y'all at home can hear me. I'm sort of interested in this statement of net position on page 15.
Page 14.
Or 15, I think 15, well. It says 15 on the bottom, but I think it's page 21 of the PDF. So, and maybe it explains it there, I didn't have time to go read the whole thing, in the last 5 minutes, trying to scan through it. But I noticed we have, about $100 million in non-current assets. My question is that evaluated based on cost, or are there kind of an appraised value for getting that amount?
Can I ask a clarifying question? You said non-current assets?
Well, total non-current assets, I said 100 million, but it's 99,316,500.
Oh, okay, so you're looking at the government activities, total non-current assets of 99,316,500, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's the total, but obviously break down into non-depreciable, which I assume is probably land,
Yes.
and then depreciable, which is, we're going to need your equipment and stuff on there. But my question is on that is, are those numbers, how close to actual reality are those numbers? Just out of curiosity. I mean, because I know sometimes things stay in the books for a long time at low cost, and how does that get adjusted every year based on current values, or is that a low number or a high number?
So hopefully this answers your question, is that your non-depreciable assets are generally like your land and your construction in progress.
Yeah.
Right? So generally those don't depreciate at all. And so then when we get to our depreciable, there's no change in like moving from fair market values. It's what was the basis of that asset when purchased.
So it's basis of asset when purchased.
Correct.
So probably in reality, and just as the actual value of those assets are much higher than what's on the book.
Well, what you see is depreciable net. So that is taking into account accumulated depreciation.
Well, but I'm talking about the non-depreciable assets. Obviously, there's no depreciation in there.
Correct.
So I'm just saying fair market value is going to be much higher than what's on this, I mean, in general, without going into specifics on this property. Sorry, I'm tying you down.
Possibly. I mean, like I said, usually it's land and.
Land generally appreciates.
Yeah, and land does appreciate. So it's when purchased.
Yeah.
But we don't,
I'm not asking for a specific,
Yeah.
so you're doing it based on cost, so.
Correct.
So I'm just saying the assumption, which probably is valid for a huge percentage of it, is that the value is probably currently much higher than what's on the financial statement. All right.
Yeah, when you're ready, when you're done.
So I'm just clarifying that, because I'm always interested in actual value versus book value, because there can be a large difference on that.
I'm not a real estate agent, so I couldn't tell you what the value of what land.
Well, I know I'm not asking for a value, but I'm just clarifying
But
there hasn't been any.
I think I understand where
So
you're
if you
going.
got a piece of property that was purchased in 1910, it's going to show up at 1910 prices, right?
Probably.
If we had land that far, yeah.
Well, the city's been around for a while.
Good question. Great question.
The pool's been around that long, so it should be, oh wait, that's the school district.
went down.
Counselor Patton.
No, I think to touch on what Counselor Stearns is talking about, one of the things to keep in mind is that I know in the last couple of property sales that the city has participated in, they've actually sold the property for a significant amount less than what it would really be valued at in an effort to spur development within the downtown core. So, historically, even if we were to take like what its current value is in really what the city has historically sold some of that land for has been significantly less. So it might kind of be splitting the middle anyways.
Well, if the choices are made to sell for less than it's what it's worth, that's a choice we should be able to make, but we should know the amount and be able to say, we are giving up X amount of dollars for the benefit of spurring growth. My interest is just make sure that I have an accurate, or not even, I know with current land values, accurate is a wild statement, but to be able to have at least a ballpark of what kind of assets, the value of the assets we are actually theoretically in control of, and whether those assets are of the greatest use or not. And obviously that's not something we're going to answer at this council meeting, but I was just interested to know that since that is basically book value, our cost value, it's basically cost that the non-depreciable amounts, and we have land, the one I was concerned on 4th Street, I know it's been in the city possession since before 1900, because I've read when it was donated. So we have basically a lot higher potentially land values than it's on this report.
Councillor Stearns, the only thing I would add to the discussion is that whether we're buying a piece of land or we're selling a piece of land, it's going to be guided by an appraisal as well. So that's going to dictate what the value is that we buy or sell.
Yeah, I'm not really off doing a criticism, I'm just trying to get a clarification so that.
Yeah, no.
So that, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Scott, thank you. I think Eric is next. Is that the plan?
All right. So the budget review. Finance has accumulated the financial data through the end of December, halfway through the year, so we're going to present the results. Budget review, we're going to provide a status of each department. We're going to look at the budget versus actuals, highlight positive results, and identify on-track results, identify areas to monitor more closely, suggest areas to focus on during the next budget process. Also touch on the long-range forecast. Finance has updated that FY 2024 beginning balances and accounted for the ARPA allocations, and a revised model will be shared. This is that long-range forecast we looked at in October. This is an update to that based off of the audit information. Next slide. So the general fund revenue, we have the numeric chart above and a bar chart below. The good is that property tax, 96% has been received. Cemetery, court, and police are exceeding their expectations on revenue. Right on track is finance and econ development. To watch are the cable franchise fees seem to be lower than they should be. The bad is that planning and building revenues are down. Notes, Parks has $3.6 million in SDC revenue, but none has been transferred. That's why the revenue in Parks looks so low. It's at 6% because there's so much of it coming from SDC fees. Economic development had unexpected $200,000 come in. Otherwise, it's right on track. So if you look at the econ development revenue, they're at 101%, but the $200,000 came in of grant money that immediately was turned around to pay. So we just need to account for that with a supplemental budget.
Eric,
Yeah.
can you go back to that slide? Or Scott, thank you. So when you say to watch the cable franchise fee, just that it's lower than anticipated?
It is, yeah. It's lower than anticipated. I've asked Katie to call the, I can't remember the cable company's name, to inquire with them if there was a reason why. So she's on top of it. You guys should just watch it. Maybe it needs to be lower for next year. I'm not sure what's going on with it.
So what we're collecting is down.
Correct.
So is that a revenue piece on their end that?
I don't know if less people are using cable or what, I don't know what the issue is. I just found it when I was doing this, so we're investigating it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And planning and building revenues are down due to
Permits?
just lack of permitting right
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
I think think you're going to see those coming up in this next year,
This calendar year or the next fiscal year?
calendar year.
Okay. So
And-
that being 2024 or 2025?
Yes,
Okay, thanks.
you're welcome.
Thanks, that's good. Counselor Patton?
With the franchise fees, so, Astound now does the cable, but they also do internet. Do we have like an internet franchise fee, or is it just cable and phone?
I don't know offhand how that.
Something to add, just something I'm just curious about to get back to me on.
Okay, I might be able to do it
Direct
later.
Link as well.
Huh?
Direct Link as well.
Doesn't, Direct Link is
Well,
also.
Direct Link does internet as well, but they used to be the telecommunications company.
Right, but they
Right.
still
There is an
do.
internet also, because they have to do the fiber, remember?
Because
Countywide.
We may need to add it as a to-do item, maybe revisit the
Yeah,
franchise.
I do
Well-
know that we are imposing to the maximum extent that we can our franchise fee. So if there is a revenue that's down, it's probably because either we're missing out or people just aren't subscribing like they used to.
Well, I think general consumption is more streaming and less,
More
yeah,
streaming and less
and
cable.
less direct cable.
Right.
Well, and I'll just throw out that one of the things, I don't want to jump the gun on this, but one of the things that I'll be bringing up at the goal setting session is like in thorough review of all of our franchise agreements. So that might get caught with all of this.
Anything else on this slide, y'all? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, general fund expenditures. We're looking at an overall picture, but we're going to hit every fund in the following slides. So I'm just going to kind of blow through this and say that all the departments are in good shape and appear to be on track. And we're going to look at them in detail in just a second. So next slide. Okay, I was trying to find a good chart that was really easy to look at, but I couldn't really find one. So I made a sample chart and I have to explain it, unfortunately. So the orange color, the color on the right, represents the total amount that was budgeted. And the blue color represents how much has been spent or earned so far this year. So since 50% of the year has passed, what we want to see is a number around 50%. So if you look at the revenue line in this example, we budgeted $100,000 of revenue from this mysterious source for this year. 50,000 has come in, that's 50%. So the charts we're going to look at are all based off of this. So here we are. There's a lot of slides. There's like 50 slides or something, right? So the ones that are on track, I'm just going to blow through them really quickly. If you have questions, just stop me.
Okay.
So admin, expenditures, personnel, material and services are right on track. Capital is not applicable. Court expenditures for personnel, material and services are right on track. They're 49, 46%, just under 50. Planning personnel is right on track at 51%. Materials and services, looking at this chart, says it's 30%, but planning has some professional and technical services happening this year, which are big dollar amounts. So they've signed the contract or the PO, so there's an encumbered amount, right? If the contract is $300,000, it really gets eaten up as the vendor is performing their services, right? So when we're looking at it here, it's showing that it's only 30%. But when you take in the amount that is encumbered, that hasn't been earned yet, they're at 74%, but really it's right on track. Parks expenditures, personnel costs are lower than expected. There was a 1.2 FTE increase in the adopted budget, but no new employees have been hired. So I think that's the reason why personnel is lower there. Capital costs are significantly lower than expected. Actual expenditures are only 5% of what we have been budgeted for. And I need to pause and talk about the capital expenditures for a second. So as you guys know, when the SDC fees are collected, we use the SDC fees to fund capital projects, right? To get the money from the SDC fund to parks, for example, I have to do all of this work comparing all of this data from all of these other sources. It's very convoluted and confusing. And I knew Scott was coming, so I didn't do any entries yet. I've got it all prepared so I can do the training for him. So no SDC funds have been transferred because I want to train him to do the transfers, and then he can do the second one on his own, and I can watch it. So that's why the capital and the SDC funds are going to look a little bit off while we go through this. So parks, material and services, they're at 32%. But there is, again, an encumbered amount for the surveys and master plan line. So when you factor that in, parks is at 46% for M&S, which is right on track.
I have a quick question.
Jason?
So you were talking about how with this capital section, it's out of whack because of, you're gonna do these transfers with him. But shouldn't it always be a little out of whack? Because shouldn't we always have more? It would seem to me we would always want more money in there, because if that's for planning for the future, there should always be a bit. It should always not be. It should always be a little out of whack, or is that wrong?
You're going all the way to the end.
Okay, I will shut up then. Never mind.
I'm just kidding. So I've noticed since I've been here that the adopted budgets have a number of dollars in there for doing capital projects, but it doesn't seem that that all of it gets spent, right? So I did a review of the last 5 years of capital projects, and I think there's an issue with it. I think we adopt too much to be spent, and the projects don't get done. And I don't know the reason for that, but what I've done is created this capital project SDC team that's going to be looking at the capital projects all of the time, at least on a quarterly basis. And we're going to try to get the capital spending to be closer to realistic. I think it's more of a wish list at this point.
Yeah, we've had a series of meetings. We just met yesterday again and started to refine those budget estimates for those capital projects. So it's doing what Eric wants it to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this
Very
is one
happy
of
with
the focuses I have for the next budget year. I think you guys should focus, the city should focus on the capital expenditures and try to get it to the difference between what's budgeted and what's spent to close that gap.
Yeah.
Okay, building, personnel, transfers, M&S, right on track. Police expenditure costs are slightly lower than expected. Capital showing 3% here, but we have the encumbered amount happening again, which brings it up to 19%, which is still a little bit under. So they probably, jumping ahead to where I do the capital review, the police department is really great at requesting amount and then spending the amount. So I would expect TRO has a plan for getting the capital expenditures to be right in line. M&S, we have an issue here. As you guys know, there was the C800 radio fee and the cost overrun, right? We had to pay more money. That was supposed to come out of the ARPA funds. But at the time I was creating this report, the cost overrun hit the police department and not the ARPA line. So this isn't really accurate at the 58%. We've made the entries and done the stuff, but the information isn't updated here because I was just getting the report done. Cemetery costs are lower than expected in both the personnel and M&S. Finance, things are right on track. Personnel is slightly lower than expected. Econ development, personnel and transfers are right on track. M&S, this is where the unexpected grant revenue of $200,000 came in. We immediately turned around and paid the $200,000. So a supplemental budget, so keeping tabs on a supplemental budget adjustment will need to be done to account for that increase in expenditures. But the money came in, so it's just the mechanics of doing the supplemental.
Got it.
HR and risk management, personnel costs are lower than expected. M&S is higher than expected due to the increased recruitment costs. Transfers aren't applicable. what we need to keep tabs on is just to make sure the increase in those recruitment costs doesn't send this one over the line of spending too much. And if it does, then we just need to do a supplemental adjustment. Okay, so general fund unallocated, excuse me. In personnel, we have a thing that the city does where we try to estimate how much it's going to cost when people retire or quit, and there's a payout that's where an amount is higher than their normal salary, right? So we have this reserve account, and we put money into the reserve account. So if someone retires and they get a payout, we need to take the money out of the reserve account for the extra that they're getting paid, okay? But I don't do the reserve account transfer until the very end of the year, because say we budgeted 80,000, but we've paid out like 150 over the year. I'm just making up wild numbers. We pay out 150 over the year for the separation stuff, right? If I were to just do the journal entries as people are retiring, like if there were $85,000 worth of retirement separation pays happened out of collections, for example, collections would get the whole benefit against their personnel costs, right? So I wait till the end of the year to see how much all of the separation pay is, and then allocate it to the departments equally, so that no one department gets the benefit and no departments have to take the brunt of the separation. Okay. So in personnel, we still need to, for this year, that transfer, the separation and retirement costs will not happen until the end of the year. Transfers are right on track. M&S, those ARPA allocations that were made after the budget adoption are going to appear in this section, the general fund unallocated. And because those weren't part of the budget process, there will need to be a supplemental budget that accounts for the extra ARPA spending. Okay, library revenue, the interfund loan from the cemetery perpetual care fund and the general fund transfers were both made. So those are right on track. What's exceeding expectations are library fines and fees, and interest revenues are better than expected. What we need to keep track of is the Clackamas County Library District revenue usually comes in at this time of year. I bet it's already here, but it wasn't here when we were doing this report. So where is that one?
It has come in.
Okay, so if you look at the second line down where the 1.1 million is, the CC Library District, that's where we would expect to see the Clackamas County revenue coming in. It's showing 0%, but it comes in basically one lump sum, which Scott just said is here, so. Library expenditures, personnel's right on track. And speaking about the cemetery perpetual care fund, the library hasn't paid back the cemetery yet because they hadn't got the money from the district, okay? Materials and services is right on track, but just pointing out that supplies and services line is only at 12%, so the library is clearly being tight on buying supplies. Street revenue, right on track. Just most of the revenue streams are right on track. Some of the revenue streams vary depending on the time of year. So while they might look lower right here, we would expect them to increase as the weather gets nicer. What's exceeding expectations are the interest revenues. What we need to keep track of is it looks like there's a decrease in building. The decrease in building has impacted street signs, curb inspections, and erosion fees. So any revenue that the street's generating from new construction is going to be lower because new construction is lower. And the lack of capital project construction so far means that no SDC funds have been transferred, right? But we would expect the street capital projects to pick up as the weather gets better. So there would be SDC fees coming in towards the end of the year. Street expenditures. Personnel's lower than expected, and this is another one where employees were, it was adopted to add employees to the department, but we haven't hired anyone yet. Transfers are right on track. Capital, only 3% has been spent, and this is due to two things: the capital projects happening in the better weather time of the year, and what I brought up before, which is the city has a habit of adopting a lot of money to spend and then doesn't spend it. So I think it's a combination of those two things. And M&S is right on track. Fleet revenue that is right on, the internal revenue is right on track. The interest revenues are better than expected, and there's nothing to keep tabs on. Fleet is doing well with revenue. Fleet expenditures, personnel is right on track, M&S right on track, and they don't have any capital expenditures yet for the year. I mean, the amount's only 10,000, so they may not spend it. Okay, so here's the SDC revenue. Interest revenue is right on track. There's nothing exceeding expectations, and we need to keep tabs on all of this. All of this SDC revenue is based on new construction. So this is something we've talked about in the leadership team meetings a few times now. Don thinks that this is not going to be as dire as this looks by the end of the year. He's expecting a pickup by the end of the year. So this looks dire, but from our discussions, it is probably going to fall short, but not this bad.
Hence 24, 25, Mayor. Okay,
Thanks, Eileen.
you're welcome.
Okay, and the SDC expenditures, this is what I was talking about, training Scott. I haven't transferred any money out of the SDC fund for anything yet. So that's why this looks like zero. The reason is because I'm waiting to do the training with Scott, show him that super complex thing. We're gonna do a screen record. We're gonna do a dictation on Word, so it's fully documented. I've got a lot of process documents on it, but it's really complex and convoluted to get this thing done right. So I've just been waiting for him to get here. Got the training ready to go. We just haven't done it.
You got it. Councilor Patton.
Is there a way to make it not convoluted?
I've tried.
Okay.
That,
I was just curious.
that I think would probably be at the state level.
Oh, well, then never mind. I retract my question.
It's not an us issue.
Okay.
Yeah, no. Council President Hensley?
Thank you. It's showing like 8 million plus. Do we have a ballpark of what's actually still available? But you haven't, you said you haven't transferred yet. So I'm just wondering, do we know what we actually have to use?
We do, yeah. It's in the, so the 8 million right here is what was adopted in the budget to actually transfer to all the other departments. The fund balance in SDC is actually much higher than the 8 million.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, that's all in the adopted budget. You could just go there and look. It's broken out by streets, parks, sewer.
Storm.
I'm blanking on the other one. There's a
Storm.
fourth one.
Storm.
Stormwater.
Stormwater.
Storm. Yep.
So what you're saying is, if you had done the training before this, we would see it pretty much be the 50% that what we're looking for.
No, because part of this is related to the fact that we aren't doing the capital projects
Oh, okay.
at the volume. I would think it might be around 20%.
Oh, okay.
Before you move on, Eric, I've got us at 10 to 7. Is this a good pausing point to pick back up here during our city council meeting?
Sure, yeah, anytime. Anywhere.
Eileen, where on the agenda do we want to try to pick this back up?
Under city administrators, business and staff reports.
You want to wait that far into the agenda, or do we want to try to move it sooner?
It's prerogative of the council. Yeah.
I mean, I would be for putting it right after old business to get through the ordinances and resolutions and things, if that's okay with the council.
Well, I was actually thinking we could do it right after the consent agenda so these folks could go home.
Yeah, and I
Well, but
think,
we still have staff here for the two ordinance, or the ordinance, yeah.
The two
ordinance
people
readings.
in front of us here for those things?
well, and Jack as well.
And
It's
Jack is
fine,
here.
I'm fine either way, I just,
I think after the consent agenda, what do you think, guys?
okay.
Okay. Okay.
All right, well, we will end the work session for now so we can reset for the council meeting and take a quick break for the council. So thank you both. We'll put this on pause and pick it up here in a little bit. Thank you, everyone.
Recordings.
counted in here. Good evening, Canby. Welcome to the regular city council meeting for February 7th of 2024. If you please stand for the invocation and then the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this great community. Thank you for the leaders that are gathered here in the halls here. I thank you so much for our community. I pray for, we lost a tremendous community member recently, and we celebrated him over the weekend, and the love and admiration that so many people feel for this individual and the loss to our community. We ask that you just guide us and lead those that feel compelled to step in and show up. I ask these things in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated.
I'm not going to do it.
Next on our agenda this evening is an Iwo Jima Remembrance Day proclamation. Whereas on February 23rd, 1945, this country's armed forces were engaged in one of the most strategic and bloodiest battles of World War II, the Battle for Iwo Jima. And whereas the Canby Aurora Veterans of Foreign Wars Post and Auxiliary 6057 of the United States have deemed it fitting to erect a flagpole at the Canby Adult Center in remembrance of those who took part in this great battle. And whereas each year, the members of the Canby Aurora Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 6057, their auxiliary, and their fellow veterans organizations and service organizations, i.e. Lewis and Clark Young Marines, Civil Air Patrol, Boy Scouts, JROTC, and etc., have conducted a ceremony to rededicate this memorial and replace the flags on the flagpole. And whereas the flagpole located at the Canby Adult Center is the only memorial in the city of Canby dedicated to our veterans who made such a significant personal sacrifices during World War II in defense of this great nation. Now, therefore, I, Brian Hodson, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Canby, do hereby proclaim February 17th, 2024 as Iwo Jima Remembrance Day. And I further call upon all members of this community to join in commemorating this great event and celebrate the 76th anniversary of the end of World War II. Given unto my hand the 7th day of February, 2024 in the city of Canby, Oregon. And I think we have a few people here to take the long way. Thank you. Here you are. Great. Thank you. Are you? Yeah, no, please, I expect you to.
Mayor Hodson, distinguished council members, members of the council. My name is Pat Shower, I'm with the Canby VFW. This is really an honor for us. It's Remembrance Day, and we hope that all of you come out. I did have a long speech for tonight, and Councilor Davis was kind enough to say that I shouldn't say anything. So with that, I'll just say thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pat.
Mayor, we have the auxiliary president, Larry Horn, also. He passed out the flyers of invitation to the council. Yes, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, sir. On the behalf of the VFW Auxiliary, we'd like to say thank you very much for everything that Canby does for our veterans and all our auxiliary and legionnaires and VFW members. Thank you, and I hope everybody shows up. We would love to see you. It's going to be a great day. We're going to have Marines, there. We're gonna have World War II. We're gonna hope to have a couple of World War II veterans there also. So I want to say thank you very much for what you guys do with the proclamation and everything. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
And thank you, folks.
So just let the community know that on February 17th at 10 a.m., there'll be the rededicating of the memorial there at the Canby Adult Center. And then there's usually, I believe, Spam is served for breakfast that day. Are we still doing that this year?
No, it's just the standing ceremony and stuff.
Okay, perfect. Good to know.
Please come out and everyone can go to their favorite restaurant afterwards and just talk about the day. It'll be our 29th, and next year, 2025, will be the 30th anniversary, but the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. We've been 29 years going on, 30 years
Wow.
of this ceremony with the help of the city. This was a World War II sanctioned city during the 50th anniversary of World War II globally. So that's why Canby is very important, because they were one of the cities included and participated in the global event of the end of World War II. So thank you very much.
You know, we appreciate you, Irene, and everything that you guys all do for keeping track and taking care of our veterans. So thank you for that.
Always a good event.
Earlier this evening, we have a change to our agenda. We had a work session earlier, mid-year budget review, that we didn't quite finish, so we will be picking that up here in the regular council meeting during the consent agenda aspect. Just wanted to draw everyone's attention to that. Next on our agenda is an update and announcement from the Canby Historical Society. And I think we have Carol Palmer here.
Yes, you do. What? Yes. Okay. Okay, good. Move this over.
Carol, how are you?
I'm good. Heck,
Good.
good. Before I start, I wanted to just say thank you to Council President Hensley for speaking on behalf of the city at our local DeMuro Award ceremony. Thank you very much. Of course. Tyler Dizer was absolutely fabulous as the MC. And thank you, Councilor Davis and Eileen Stein and Jamie Stickle for showing up. We had a really nice contingent there from the city, plus a nice contingent from Rotary and Chamber as well. And also the Mark Prairie Historical Society, Judy Oss was there, and so she got some FaceTime, as did one of the members of the Friends of Caras School Board, got some FaceTime with Rachel Brown, I think is her name, who is the president of the Restore Oregon. And that's really important because in the world of nonprofit heritage organizations, networking and building alliances is really critical. So thank you. And I'm here today to talk about my purpose is to talk about the Canby Historical Society, to give you an update of where we are. I don't think we've done this for quite a while, and I'm going to talk about what we've accomplished this year and what our plans are, last year, excuse me, in 2023, and what our plans are for 2024. So I'll skip to I think I'm in control here. Which button? Turn it around? There you go. Oh, okay. Yes, there's the agenda. And in case you're not familiar with our board of directors, I wanted you to have a list, and I want you to know that Nora Clark is here, our president, as is Jennifer Giller, who is also on the board. Next one. A little bit of background. The last 7 years have been a little bit difficult with the 130-year-old building, which of course was updated 40 years ago, but still 40 years after that original update when it was moved to the location it's at now, things started falling apart. And so we were, over a very short period of time, stuck with a lot of very expensive repairs that are just come with an old building. Concurrently, the pandemic hit, and so we're not able to hold 2 of our flea markets and 3 of our pancake breakfasts. So we lost some revenue that we were usually, really counting on every year. Now, to offset the revenue loss, Nora really took advantage of the ARA funds that came through the county and came through the Cultural Trust. So we really got, real help there to help us get through it. We also got a Kinsman Foundation grant to help pay for the painting. And thank you very much for the city enhancement grant that we got. We used that to pay for the HVAC, the heat pump died, so that's something you have to replace. And then we also used part of that as a match for the Oregon Heritage Grant that we applied for our collection upgrades. And the thing I love about that kind of match is we're using city funds to bring other money into the community. So this was really, probably we won't spend the full $3,800 because one of our members has a lot of skills that I wasn't aware of, and I had some contract costs in that grant application I turned in. And so we're probably going to be more like about $2,500 that we'll spend, but still that's $500 brought in $2,500. So that's great. And so thank you again. 2003 accomplishments. Yes, at the site, we've done a couple of things. First of all, replace the heat pump, but also we got the historic site designation, which now gives us some protection for the community, really. We're protecting the site for the community. We had the luggage cart is being restored. We have several of those. We have 2 of our members that are working on those, and we've added space to our storage unit. Oops, I think I went the wrong way. There we are. Policies. We've also we've made some changes to our policies. We used to ask for a donation from visitors. We now say $2. We weren't getting a lot of donations, and $2 isn't usually going to stop somebody from coming in, but it really adds to our revenue stream in the long term. We've also changed our photograph reproduction policy. We now require a signed release for all reproduction of any of our photographs. And we do have a set fees now for reproduction. We've also replaced the locks and established a key log. So we're trying to become a little more professional. Collections. We now have 100 years of Canby Heralds. One of our treasures that we had that was hidden away back in the file cabinet was 43 oral histories, and I think it's actually a little more than that. It's more like 50 oral histories that were recorded on CDs and DVDs, and some of them were still on, like, remember the old recordings that, the tape stuff? Yeah, we had some of that too. Wow. So the idea was to get it all into longer-term storage, so we bought some equipment for that. We also had, for about 40 of the oral histories, maybe about a little fewer than that, we had transcriptions, but there were about 20 that we didn't have transcriptions on. So we're in the process of getting those. And they are absolutely fabulous. The one I just read recently was an interview with Wayne Austin and Frank Cutsford talking about baseball in the 50s in Canby. It's just absolutely fabulous. So these are all, I could just go on and on about the one with Doc Harms and other folks, but they are just absolutely delightful. So if you have kids that need to write a paper and they're looking for this topic, tell them to come on down to the depot. We've got some great things for them to read about this community 50, 60, 70 years ago. We also purchased new equipment for viewing our digital material. So we came out of the 19th century, I guess the 20th century, into the 21st century in terms of television and stuff like that. So you can actually watch the DVDs on the RTV. Outreach. We have upgraded our website. Donna Lean is our treasurer, and she does a great job with social media and with our website. We have now surfaced on social media. We were sort of in hiding there for a while, so you're seeing that, hopefully. And we've started a Facebook group called Canby Then and Now. We've also reached an agreement with Community Advantage magazine for CHS contributions every time it comes out. Community involvement. We were not really doing a lot of this, especially during the pandemic, so we really wanted to make a splash this year. Kiwanis Toy Drive, KGW School Supply Drive, Christmas Street Display Contest, Santa Visit. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and third grade tours.
For what?
For being the Santa.
I don't know what you're talking about. Wasn't me.
Santa.
It was Santa.
Wasn't me. She's mistaken.
It was Santa.
Yes. We've also reached out to find opportunities to collaborate. Marissa Ely, who is your library director, is fabulous. She and I have connected, and we've already figured out ways where we can sort of help each other out. When people come into the library and they're looking for material on the history of the community or something to do with their house or where they live, their street, they don't have a lot in the library at all. That's not part of their circulation that they have. So I'm creating a resource guide for them that they can use to give to people and refer them to the depot so that we can help them with that kind of research. And also the Chamber of Commerce. We are now a member of the Tourism Subcommittee, and we're working with Belinda on a couple of things. In addition, we're doing some planning. Oregon Parks and Recreation has, Oregon Heritage Division has a mentor program. It's free. So you all know, because you're in the midst of planning, how much it costs to bring somebody in to help you plan. So this is like a little gem to be able to have an expert come in and help us think about what do we want to do for the next 5 years. The person that's been assigned to our mentor is the director of the Klamath County Historical Society and Museum. So he has a lot of experience, and we're really going to take advantage of him. Finances. This was just sort of a synopsis of sort of the big numbers for us for 2023. Pancake breakfast is a bit of a problem because it is so labor intensive. It was one of the things that we really considered not doing. Nora worked with Tyler Nizer on coming up with a plan where we would again participate this year. The thing that really hurts us is we used to get 3 hours of business, but now we only get 2. And so, the place empties out at 10 a.m. It's just everybody wants to go to the parade, and you can't, there's no reason they shouldn't.
It starts earlier now.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see how this year's goes, but I don't know that, we will certainly look at that again for next year to say, is this really worth our time? It was 200 hours of volunteer time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot, because it's not just the serving and the cooking, it's the ahead of time, you've got to work the rental agreement with the school district, you've got to organize, recruit volunteers, buy the food, figure out a way to get it there and then get it out. Yeah, it's a lot. So this is the work in progress this year. The 5-year plan, obviously, I have once again reached out to the high school with Sue Winter to see if we can't get a student on our board. We're looking for additional collaborative opportunities. And pretty much what it says up there is we're going to do what we did this year and more, and include that in the planning. One of the things to look forward to is May is Historic Preservation Month, and we plan to, I've reached out to the Chamber, the Library, the Economic Development Department, obviously, Canby Historical Society and Mark Prairie Historical Society. We're all coming together, and we've got multiple things planned. First of all, the city has a historic resource survey of the town site that's happening this month. It's an update of one that was done in 2009 that was out of date. I'm going to be doing the presentation of the findings at the May Chamber Luncheon. We're asking for a mayoral proclamation, not only to talk about historic preservation, but we've got some folks here that are going to be recognized at the Oregon Heritage Conference as volunteers. And so volunteers are the backbone. So this is a chance to have them here and have the proclamation include them. Tyler and I have figured out some ways to make historic preservation fit into First Thursday, part of the scavenger hunt. And the Canby Library, Canby Historical Society, I'm really excited about this. We have a workshop coming up, I think it's going to be May 18th, featuring a fellow from the Oak Lodge History Detectives who is going to talk about discovering the history of your home. It's really nice to have Michael here because he's in Clackamas County, and not all the counties are the same, and you spend a lot of time looking at county records if you're doing the history of your house. So he has been down that road in Oak Lodge, which is, just up the street from us. And last, to kick off our new year, we close in January and February, but on March 3rd from 1 to 4, we're going to give you free admission, tours and refreshments, and we're going to have an open house to sort of say, hey, we're back and ready to start a new year. Any questions?
Carol, as always, a very well detailed and planned out presentation. I do appreciate the updates that you come and give to us on what you all have going on and have been doing. I know the pancake breakfast has always been a very labor intensive thing that you put on and the group puts on, but it's always a very well loved event.
I know. That makes it
I know
hard.
many of us have over the years volunteered and I enjoy helping out with it just because you get to see everybody, and it's hard to be mad at the mayor when he's handing out pancakes. So, it's a fact. So yeah, please let us know how we can
I'll
continue
gladly
to
help
help
again.
with that.
Good. It's a
Or
fun
anything
time.
else going on in the city too. So thank you very much.
You bet.
Any questions or comments for, no?
I just want to double, the times for the March 3rd thing, was it 1 to 3?
1 to 4.
1 to 4, okay.
Did I say 3? I could have said 3.
No, that's why I was double checking, because I didn't remember.
Wonderful.
March 3rd, 1 to 4.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next on our agenda this evening is citizen input and community announcements. There's an opportunity for audience members to address the city council on non-agenda items. If you're attending in person, you can fill out one of these fancy yellow cards and make sure that Ms. Maya gets it, and she'll make sure that I get it. And then you can address the council. If you are not able to attend but want to give your comments or announcements virtually, please let city staff know before 4 o'clock on the day of our city council meeting so that we can get you teed up. I have 2 cards this evening. The first one is Mr. Perez. The Knights of Columbus.
This will be short. I'm Greg Perez with the Canby KC Charities and Knights of Columbus. We're having our 27th annual crab dinner and auction February 24th from 4 to 10 p.m. 4 o'clock, the early portion is to go look upstairs at the 200 items they have, and then we have 21 live auction items. So if you want to get tickets, they are going to be Friday and Saturday of this week, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday of next week from 12 to 6. And our main paddle raiser is going to neurotherapeutics to help the children and the families that don't have the funds for their physical needs. And that's all I have this evening.
Greg, can you repeat the date and time of the crab feed?
The date is going to be February 24th at the Clackamas County Fairgrounds. And the times, the doors open at 4, and we will be done probably a little bit before 10.
And how much are the tickets?
The tickets are $50. It's fresh crab. It's not frozen. We get it from Tillamook.
We just did the one at the Elks Lodge this past weekend, and it was an absolute blast.
Yeah,
So
we have a
we look forward to
contact in
doing it.
Tillamook, so
Yeah.
it's fresh. Thank you so
No,
much.
it's good. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg.
Next yellow card I have is for Miguel Cholula.
Cholula like the sauce.
Did I do that correctly?
Absolutely.
Perfect, with Bridging Cultures. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for giving me the time. My name is Miguel Cholula. I'm the new executive director for Bridging Cultures. I'm aware that Bridging Cultures has been a very supportive organization here in Canby with their multiple events during the summer and also providing different resources to different community members. We are continue to do that, and we are also going to be asking for collaboration through the city, through different departments. And one of the things that I do want to highlight is that we would like to see more of the Latino community and elevate, right, the Latino community, create environments that are welcoming for all, and ensuring that we are connecting all the community members through Bridging Cultures and through the community at large. And again, Miguel Cholula here and Bridging Cultures, please feel free to reach out. We will have later throughout the year some fundraising activities. I'm hoping that you are able to join us as well. And thank you. Any
Miguel,
questions?
Well, more of a statement than a question. Welcome. Thank you. We appreciate you being here. Joy, thank you for making this happen, and Chief as well. Sorry, Councilor Davis, different hat. Yes, when you start ironing out the dates of things that are coming up, please come back. Let us know so we can make sure we get those out, here via the community and whatnot, and let everyone know what you guys have planned and what kinds of things we can do to help facilitate that.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time and for the work that you do.
Oh, Council President Hensley.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I had the pleasure of meeting Miguel yesterday at the Chamber Luncheon.
Yes.
And I did mention that we have a liaison. Did you get a chance to meet Councilor Stearns yet?
Briefly, yes.
Okay.
And
We have an appointment Monday.
Excellent. I just wanted to make sure that connection was made. So this is who I was referring to yesterday. So
yeah, absolutely.
good to
And
see you
thank
again.
Thank you for directing me.
Of course.
Well,
Thank
perfect.
you.
Thank you very much.
Have a great night.
Yeah, we'll see you back here soon.
Yeah.
Okay, next on our agenda is to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor. Before I make the motion, I want to say thank you. We're finally caught up. I love this. I'm so happy. I make a motion to approve the consent agenda, which consists of the approval of the January 10th, 2024 City Council regular meeting minutes and the approval of January 18th, 2024 City Council regular meeting minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion has been made by Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Patton to approve the consent agenda, which include the January 10th, 2024 City Council regular meeting minutes and approval of January 18th, 2024 City Council regular minutes as well. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Perfect. Carries 6-0.
Kudos to whoever's doing that.
Yeah,
I'm happy that they're caught up.
Maya, thank you so much for whoever's getting those caught. Is it you getting those caught up?
Combination of.
Thank you. It's a combination of myself and also Susan Wood.
Perfect. Well, thank you to you, and please thank Susan on our behalf for that.
Yeah.
I know that's not easy to get caught up. Like we said earlier this evening, a little bit of a agenda switcheroo. So we're going to pick up from our earlier work session that we didn't quite finish and go back and finish up our budget review. So if I could have our our finance people come join us again and finish up our conversation. Welcome again.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Okay, we left off with the SDC expenditures, so transient room tax. We're showing both slides on here, both the revenue and the expenditures, because not very much activity happens in this one. So in the revenue, interest revenue is doing better than expected, and tax revenue being collected is slightly below expectations. Expenditures are below expectations currently. Next. Cemetery perpetual care, not much happens in here, so I'm presenting both slides in one. Revenue, the interest revenue and sales are doing better than expected, and the loan repayment from the library will occur, or has occurred, but hadn't occurred when we did this presentation. And expenditures are as expected.
So I just want to go back to your comment in here about revenues and sales are doing better than expected when regards to a cemetery.
Yeah, maybe not the right term.
No, I just thought I just found it rather humorous, that's all.
The old term we're dying to get in.
But thank you, Councilor Sassy. All right. Sorry, Eric, go ahead.
Okay. Facilities revenue, internal transfers are right on track. Interest revenues are exceeding expectations. There's nothing to keep tab on here. It's great. Facilities expenditures, personnel, and M&S are lower than expected, and transfers out in capital don't apply to facilities. Forfeiture fund, this is another one that doesn't have a lot of activity, so both revenue and expenditures are shown. Interest revenue is doing better than expected, and we have not received any federal or civil category funds yet. And there's been no expenditures. IT revenue, internal transfers are right on track. Interest revenue is better than expected, and there's nothing to keep track of here. It's going good. IT expenditures, personnel costs are lower than expected because the IT employees left the city prior to 2024 starting, and no replacement personnel has been hired yet. Capital, while only 4,200 has been paid so far, there's another 29,000 that's encumbered. So with that factored in, capital's at 66%. M&S costs are much higher than expected because of the staffing issue. The contracted IT people show up in the M&S line and not the personnel line.
Thank you.
Transit revenue, right on track are the STIF formula funds. The employer payroll taxes come in quarterly, and the next payments are expected in January, February. So that line's actually right on track, even though it looks like it's down a little bit. Let's see, which one is that? That would be the very bottom line that shows only 25% because the tax comes in a little bit later than the quarter it's related to. Exceeding expectations are the interest revenues, the payroll tax penalties, and the STIF interest. Keep tracks on all of the grant revenue, but you got to know that the transit director is exceptional at estimating, tracking, and requesting the grant revenue. So finance doesn't expect any issues in that area, and fares seem to be a little under expectation. Transit expenditures, costs, personnel is less than expected. Transfers out are right on track. Capital, no capital expenditures yet, but remember that $1.5 million in the adopted budget is for the new transit office. So this amount isn't going to get spent by the end of the year. The plan is to save this in addition to the prior year amounts to use in the future when the transit office is built. M&S costs are lower. There are some funds set aside for professional services that haven't been used yet, but it's expected they'll be used before the end of the year. Swim revenue, property tax revenues, and pool revenues are right on track. There's usually an increase in the pool revenues near the end of the year. So yeah, the pool revenue, which is the second one from the bottom, I would expect that'll be just fine because a lot of the season passes or whatever happened just right before the end of the fiscal year. There's nothing to keep tabs on here. It's looking good. Swim expenditures, personnel's right on track. Transfers out, capital right on track. Material and services costs are lower than expected, but there are funds set aside for building maintenance that haven't been used yet, but we expect that it will get used by the end of the year. Urban Renewal General Fund revenue is right on track. The operational transfers are right on track. Interest revenues are better than expected. There's nothing to keep tabs on here. It's just as we expected. The URGD general expenditures, there's no personnel transfers or capital. The M&S is slightly lower than expected. URD debt revenue, all the revenue streams are right on track. It's mostly the tax increment financing. Nothing's exceeding expectations. Everything's like at perfectly as expected here. URD debt expenditures, the debt service is right on track. The debt service, those are the debt payments we make on the loan. That's the top one that's showing 3%. The reason it's like that is because we make an interest payment in December, but we make the large principal payment in May. So it'll be right at 100% when that happens. And yeah, okay. Sewer, the wastewater treatment plant revenue, charges for the services are right on track. The interest revenues are better than expected. Things to keep tabs on are the sewer tap fees and miscellaneous revenues are a little bit below estimate. And we haven't transferred any of those SDC funds as I talked about earlier. But also know that the sewer tap fees is only 17,000 of the whole enchilada, so not to be too concerned. Wastewater treatment plant expenditures, personnel costs are lower than expected. Transfers are right on the money. Capital is right on track. There's a $1.4 million project in wastewater treatment, and about half of that has been spent so far. M&S costs are a little bit lower than expected. Collection expenditures, personnel's lower because of adopting a budget to have more employees, but no new employees have been transferred yet. In the capital, there was only 2,000 in capital budgeted for this year, but costs totaling 367 have occurred in other projects. M&S is slightly lower than expected. And things to keep tabs on are because the capital cost went over, it might send the collection expenditures over what was adopted, so there may need to be a supplemental budget. So Jack wanted to know what happened in the capital account. So we looked at it. I don't know how much detail you want, but in the budget, we had only budgeted $200,000 to be spent on the fuel station, but there's like 4 or 5 capital projects where costs have accumulated. They're projects that were adopted in the prior year, but they bled over into this year being built. And this is part of the issue that happens with the capital line that the capital team is going to address, and it's just an issue to pay attention to.
Okay.
Stormwater expenditures, personnel lower than expected. Transfers are on track. In capital, there's an amount encumbered, and when you take that into effect, then 37% of the capital has been spent or committed for stormwater, so it's on track. And M&S is lower than expected. And then the sewer unallocated expenditures, personnel and M&S are right on track, and transfers and capitals aren't applicable to this. So, capital expenditures. Finance noticed that there's a trend in the capital expenditures. What gets spent is usually much less than what gets adopted. I reviewed the capital accounts adopted versus actual from 2019 through 23. I think with the long-range forecasting thing that we did in October, it's going to be important to have accurate estimates for the capital expenditure plans. Some other areas in capital expenditures that need to be reviewed are how do project cost estimates compare to the actual cost incurred to complete projects? I haven't done that review yet, but I think it's important. Is there enough FTE to support the volume of projects being planned? I'm thinking of like the Parks Department, which has like a huge amount of park capital projects, but it doesn't seem like the FTE is increasing to match the increase in parks, right?
That's been an ongoing conversation for a decade.
Right, okay, so next slide. So this is what I did. I looked at the last 5 years of capital projects. This one is the police department. So the 5-year average is how much total had been budgeted over the 5 years and how much has been spent over the 5 years. So the police department is right on track at spending basically 98% of what gets adopted, they spend it. They do a good job of estimating the capital costs for the year. In 3 of these years, they were less than a 10% variance. 1 year, there was a significant overspending of the budget amount. I did not go into the overspending of any of these to see what they were. I'm just looking at the numbers to get an idea.
So, Eric, is there an acceptable margin? Is it that 10% margin of like whether we're budgeting and project planning accurately, or is it purely?
I don't know that the 10% is the margin to shoot for. I'm going to skip to the last slide and tell you that as a whole, Canby spends 52%. If you take all of the funds over the 5 years, Canby's only spent 52% of what's been adopted. So I would think maybe closing that gap by 20% this year, or making a goal, but I don't know that 10% is reasonable on the first year. It's like a new team looking at the capital projects, the directors having to be more like focused on the spending and the right time period, the project cost. So 10% is probably too rich of a target for the first year.
Okay.
So parks, the 5-year average, they've only spent 40% of what's been adopted. There was only 1 year in the past 5 where the variance was less than 10%. 23 had 2 projects totaling 1.9 million that had very little activity. And then I'm just saying with a total average of 40%, this looks like a fund that could benefit from extra work on capital planning. Transit, their 5-year average is 60%. There have been 3 years in the last 5 where the variance was less than 10%. 1 year had slight overspending. So in FY '22 and '23, the transit department had $1.5 million set aside for the new transit office, and those funds have been removed from this calculation because it's well known that we're holding those funds for future use. And while the 5-year total average is 60%, there's another factor, which is the bus shelters, which you guys might already know that for three years, the transit department has budgeted to put the bus shelters in, but those bus shelters are dependent on other projects being completed.
Like,
so,
like 99E maybe, for example?
Yeah, so, so the calculation gets skewed by that. So if you remove that scenario from it, then transit is at 75% over the 5 years. Swim, they've only spent 8%, but this is another thing where the chart is skewed by the fact that the swimming department has been requested and it's been adopted for capital funds for a major capital improvement. In those years, I have listed the dollar amounts that were adopted in the budget, but no renovation project has begun, right? And then I'm talking about in 21, there was 0 budgeted, but 23,500 was spent, which just happened to be the unspent amount from the year before. So we're talking about the timing of projects again. And this is one thing, I don't know the answer to this. I don't know what the cost of the large renovation project at the swim center is, but I don't, it's $500,000 and then 650,000 and then 1.5 million. I don't know if you add all those numbers to get to the project total that's being saved for. So this is one of the issues we need to deal with in the capital project team. Like, we would know what's the renovation amount, how much should we be saving, and then, because this could skew, people might think that all 3 of those numbers are the renovation project. My gut says that's not the case. But this capital project team is going to be documenting all of this stuff.
So
That would be good.
right now, so basically we're saying, the way I read it is 19, we set aside $500,000. 22, we set aside the 650. And then 23, we set 1.5 million aside.
So it looks
like
we have
we've got
2.6.
Yeah, like
Yes.
2.6 million.
Right.
But we need to confirm that to make sure.
Yeah, I don't know
Please.
what the project was or how big the renovation was going to be.
And
what the
council,
cost
I
was.
just want to remind you that when we presented the aquatic center in December, you did allocate some of that money for Eric to go out and get a fresh cost estimate on what the cost was. So that's still happening. But I just wanted you to know that those numbers have been, we are in the process of updating those.
Okay.
And I just want to state one thing, like, this money that gets allocated but not spent doesn't disappear. So it's still in the swim department.
Got it.
Okay.
Councilor Patton.
So in this case, to someone it might look like $2 million, but hypothetically, it could actually be that the $500,000 wasn't spent, so it went back into the pot. The next year, we were going to do like maybe 100,000 more of it. It didn't get spent. And so really it's not cumulative. It's just.
It is cumulative.
So it would be $2 million.
Yes.
That's in there to be spent.
That's right, 2.6.
Oh. Is part of the, I don't know why he can't build his party room then. Well, this kind of just threw me all off because now, is there a way to, when we do the budget, and I don't know if this is what this new team is going to be doing, to like make a footnote for like the next year to say, you didn't spend this much, so now it's part of the, I don't know.
Yeah, that's my goal, is that the council will know all of these capital projects, and the ones that go more than 1 year, it's going to be clear, like for the transit office, we got to save $1.5 million for 4 years to get $6 million to build the transit office. Like, I want everyone on the council and all of the directors and everyone to know that, like, for it to be very obvious, and part of the budget document.
would it make sense, and this is something that I think I've mentioned before, both as a budget committee, as a citizen member, and as this, would it, would it make sense to create a fund line specifically for that project? So instead of that, so like the money would be, you'd be able to see the money accumulating for that particular project rather than at the end of the year, it going back into the pot and then coming back out as a bigger number.
Yeah, the problem is the budgets are just for 1 year.
Yeah.
Right? So we can't show a saved dollar amount sitting there, really. That's why I think we need to have a capital improvement plan. Other cities have these capital improvement plans where they have all of the saving of money documented, or we have this project in the future and we need to save these dollars through these years to get to this dollar amount 5 years down the road.
Okay.
So I think that the narrative part of the capital project planning needs to be added to the budget document. I don't know in what flavor, but I think it needs to be in there and not shown in the budget, because the budget is just supposed to be the year's activity.
Okay.
Next one. So streets is 5-year average is 44% with no years with the 10% or less variance. So streets could really benefit from extra capital planning. And I mean, streets is the first department we worked on in the capital project planning meeting this week. We went through, looked at what we think is really going to happen this year, and Jerry and Spencer are going to be working on like really fine tuning the amounts for next year. So IT is 5-year averages at 59%. No years in the last 5 years were less than a 10% variance. So IT planning could benefit from, or IT could benefit from capital planning as well. The URD 5-year average is at 58%. No years during the last 5 with a 10% or less variance. The URD could benefit from extra capital planning, but the URD is also closing in 26. There's only a limited dollar amount left to fund in there, so this one isn't so concerning. I know everyone's talking about the URD expenditures, even though we're not in a URD meeting.
Not this group.
Okay, so sewer combined fund, as in total, this is collections, wastewater treatment, yeah, all of them, right? They're at 67%. There was 1 year where the variance was less than the 10%. They're doing pretty good, but they could benefit from some extra capital planning as well. So in total, the city's only spent about 52% of the funds that have been allocated for capital projects over the last 5 years. The gap between what gets adopted and spent is significant, and I think we just need to focus on closing the gap. My personal concern would be that citizens would be looking at the dollar amounts being spent on these capital projects that are adopted, like maybe you think you're getting a whole bunch of new parks, but no parks get built, and then that's leading to a lack of confidence. And then when we talked about the long-range forecasting stuff from October, I think it's important to try to fine-tune these capital numbers. In summary, the audit outcomes are positive. Finance's objective is to continue to receive unmodified opinions over the city's statements and have no material audit adjustments. And as you heard, Scott's going to work on doing the gap accounting to reduce the audit costs and stuff. The results from the mid-year budget review are super positive. Just a reminder that those ARPA allocations are going to trigger a need for a supplemental budget before the end of the year. A review of the capital spending trend revealed a gap between what gets adopted and spent, and we should focus on that. And then the last one is just about the capital project and SDC team, which I've talked about, so. And that's it.
Very good presentation. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Questions for Eric and Scott? Yes. Councilor Sassy.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome, sir.
The money shown in a lot of these that wasn't used, who's hindering these projects from getting done?
I didn't look into that, you know.
I mean, is it us? Is it the city? Is it?
I think that's a really wide-ranging factors. You know, like when COVID hit, there was a real drop in the amount of capital projects being done, which makes sense. Like couldn't get material, couldn't get people. But I think there's a whole host of factors, which is why I think this team approach would really benefit, like getting everybody in the room so that we all know why projects are being hindered, get constant status reports on the projects, make adjustments on the fly.
Well, I know for a fact that in parks, we wanted it turfed last year, but there were internal problems that didn't get resolved, so that got put off another year.
Right.
So anyway, I just wanted to know if anybody knew why some of these aren't getting done.
I mean, that is a factor for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Well, and I know too, on the parks side of thing, it's, you know, we put in new, we got to take care of it. And so that doesn't fall in this category. So what does that look like? Unless we're starting to make, you know, carefree parks, which I don't see us doing any kind of just stone garden parks anywhere. So.
No, even stones need to be maintained.
Thank you, Jason. I'm sure that they do, but they don't need to be cut every week, you know?
They need other things.
Okay.
All right. Next question. Any other questions? Yes,
I wanted to go to just check in with Jack to make sure that if all his was entered. Okay. I do have a couple of things.
Yeah.
One, thank you for going through this mid-year budget review. This has been a pet peeve drum that I've been beating, whatever you want to call it, for several years now. And so I'm glad we got to this point. Hopefully next year it gets a little more robust and, you know, it really becomes an integral part of this whole process. I think it's really important. I wasn't sure if it would be allowable for me to just throw out two things, because this is the mid-year of this budget, but I know the city is in the process of starting next year's budget. So I just have two things that I was hoping to throw out of things I would be looking at for next year, if that's okay. One is during the budget review of in May of last year, there was the mayor had noticed that there was a discrepancy in the amount of street maintenance fee revenue that had been showing in the budget. So we knew that the number of houses and the number of fee-paying units had gone up, but somehow the actual amount of revenue that was being collected had gone down. And so I don't know if it would be possible to really dig into that to see if that money went somewhere, where it went to, what would cause that discrepancy. Is it something that needs to be caught up on because, you know, the house is built now, but it takes some time, where that revenue was actually going.
Okay.
The other one that I wanted to throw out that I had made a note to talk about now that I had mentioned earlier in May was looking at the possibility of a grant writer. So I think others will agree with me that there is a lot of money that is floating out there that the city could capture for parks and streets and some of these other things that we miss out on because, while we do have some really great people within the city that do a lot of the grant writing, that's not their primary goal. And so they're juggling the two things at once. And so if there's some, you know, employee savings that could be divided over various, you know, whether it be streets or economic development stuff, because this person would be doing grants for the whole city rather than just one department. If there's a way to see what a budget would look like with someone like that in it. Not that it would be in there, but I'm just curious as to what impact it would be. A, how much of the cost would be, and B, how much money they could get in. Are they actually going to fund themselves by being part of the city team or not? So that would be something for both you and for you, Eileen.
Well, I think too, it doesn't necessarily have to be a staff, somebody that we hire as a permanent staff member.
Well, yeah, it could be a contractor or
Yeah,
something.
because they usually take a percentage of whatever they get in terms of a grant. And that, I'd be open to having that conversation as well.
We actually are beginning to explore those possibilities.
Awesome. Great. Did you have something?
Yes, I did.
Go for it, Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're very welcome, sir.
Hey, good presentation, you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
A few things. On the parks SDCs, is there a way to go back and show what's been charged to the SDCs for parks?
Yes. Like by project or?
Yep. Say the last 2 years. In
Okay.
other words, where the balance was and then what's been charged to it, specifically what's been charged to it?
For like 23 and 24? Or
Yeah.
22 and 23?
Well, 23, 24 is good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be easy to get together.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for the mid-year finance review? Okay. Gentlemen, anything else for us that we should know?
One last thing, the long-range forecasting, when we take into account the new beginning fund balances because the audit's done and the ARPA allocations that were made after the budget was adopted, they nearly offset each other. So the increase in beginning fund balances almost negates the ARPA, the extra ARPA spending.
Okay.
So the crossover point on that line didn't get worse, significantly worse, where revenue drops underneath expenditures in 26.
Good to know.
Yeah.
That's better.
Eric, a quick question. When you were given our financial update before and talking about projections for the future, 3 years out, and revenues exceeding expenditures in regards to personnel, are we going to have an update of that in the budget process as we move forward? Because that's going to be pretty important when we look at whether or not we can add any new positions.
I agree.
Moving
Yeah,
forward.
it is important. I think we need to gather some data for, incorporate the 23 actual data in there, the FY 2023 actual data in there. Then with this capital project team really looking at how much we're going to spend in capital and not doing like wish lists, like overestimating the amount of capital, the reduction in the adopted capital expenditure is going to increase the beginning fund balances. So all of those factors together, I think we need to wait until all of that stuff's together to redo the forecasting.
Yeah, perfect.
Yep.
All right.
I do have one last thing based on that. As the council begins to do its goals, you know, we're thinking about plans and targets that we as an organization can hit. Would you say for that long-range plan, it sounds like to try to get 5 years by the end, you know, by the end of the year could be very difficult. Do you think that 2 years, looking out 2 years would be achievable? Or is it something that we shouldn't focus on yet? And maybe that's something to set a goal for next year.
I think the 5 year is okay, but just know that there's like assumptions made to get to the end of the 5 years, right?
Sure.
I'm like using things like no new employees and only a 5% increase or, you know, just stuff like that. But as plans develop with like the capital projects or a grant writer or new positions, that changes the long range forecast. So like maybe 2 years is more accurate to look at. And then just 3, 4, and 5 is like an FYI type of thing.
Sure, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. And thanks for staying a little bit longer tonight to cover this. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. I was glad to be able to do the mid-year budget review this time.
Yeah. How much longer do we have you?
It's up to him.
How quickly he gets up to speed? All right.
Yep. Once he stops quivering.
No pressure, Scott.
As I can get through all of your files.
Yep. Poor guy.
You guys crack me up. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, moving into ordinances and resolutions. First item A is considering ordinance number 1616, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Angel Tracks LLC of Dothan, Alabama, in the amount of $86,263.28 to provide camera systems for Canby area transit vehicles. Second reading. I don't think do we have any updates on this at all from the transit team that's here hanging out? Come on up. No? Yeah?
Nothing new? Mr. Mayor, I'll move to adopt ordinance number 1616, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Angel Tracks LLC of Dothan, Alabama, in the amount of $86,263.28 to provide camera systems for Canby area transit vehicles for roll call vote.
Second.
No questions, I think?
I guess no questions for you. Thank you for being here. Motion has been made by Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Davis to approve ordinance 1616, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Angel Tracks LLC of Dothan, Alabama, in the amount of $86,263.28 to provide camera systems for the Canby area transit vehicles with a roll call vote. Any discussion items at all? No? All right. Ms. Maya.
Counselor Sassy,
Aye.
Counselor Stearns,
Aye.
Counselor Davis,
Aye.
Counselor Maldonado,
Aye.
Counselor Patton,
Aye.
and Council President Hensley.
Aye.
That motion carries 6-0. Next on the agenda is considering ordinance number 1617, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Harper, Hauff, Peterson, Regalis for the design and construction phase engineering services for the Canby Auburn Farms Park development. First reading. Is that Jerry presenting?
That's what it says on here.
It, I think does say in my notes.
It does say Jerry.
Oh, it does. Jerry Nelson,
Nelson.
Public Works
Mayor and
Director.
Council.
Hi, Jerry.
Jamie offered to present. I just took her
Oh,
up on
Jamie,
it.
well, Jamie can come up too.
No, it's just, she's shaking her head.
Unless you have any questions, I'm happy to
Okay.
help support this.
Council, this is a project that we've been wanting to do for a long time. I know Auburn Farms, thinking back, I don't know exact years, was built in 2005-ish, around there, and we had land given to us, and it's just been sitting. We currently, with our Parks Advisory Committee, build a new CIP, budgeted, and came up with, this was one of their parks they wanted to tackle. We actually did the public input, got kind of or two, I guess. Yeah. Got some renderings put together. I think Maya was nice enough to attach the one, and we're ready to get started on full design and hopefully carry it through, use HHPR to carry it through project management and get this park built. So the money's budgeted, ready to go. Just waiting on your guys' approval on this.
Okay. Any questions for staff on the project at all? No? Question, yes.
And I'm just maybe not reading this carefully. What was the price on, what were we contracting for, or do we have a?
148.5.
What?
148.5.
Okay, 145, okay, that was my question.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Davis.
Are you ready for a motion?
I am ready for a motion, sir.
I move to approve ordinance 1617, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Harper, Hoff, Peterson, yes.
Regalis.
Yep.
Regalis, thank you, in the amount of $148,500 construction phase engineering services for our Canby Auburn Farms Park development to a second reading on February 21st, 2024.
Second. Motion's been made by Councilor Davis and seconded by Councilor Sassy to approve ordinance number 1617, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Harper, Hauff, Peterson, and Regalis Incorporated in the amount of $148,500 for construction phase engineering services for the Canby Auburn Farms Park Development for a second reading on February 21st, 2024. Any further discussion? Yes, Counselor Patton.
I just want to say how jazzed I am that we're going to do something. We're going to build something for the community, and we're going to take some of this money and actually get something done for these people. So thank you very much for getting this dealt with. That's it.
I have an unrelated question after the vote.
Is it about this topic?
No, it's an unrelated question for Jerry, but I'll wait till after the vote, please.
Counselor Davis.
Jerry, I just wanted to thank you and Eileen for moving this project forward. It's important to the Parks Committee that we start getting these projects done, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks for approving it.
Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Council President Henley, an unrelated comment.
I have a question for Jerry. Earlier this evening, we got a presentation from the Canby Historical Society, and I did take note that she said that they had gotten a historical site preservation designation. How will that affect the realignment of Pine Street?
At this point, we're just in the design phase, trying to work with property owners in there on that. So we're not, I really can't answer that till we get to a closer design on that, Counselor Hensley. Maybe that's something that if you want to see pretty soon, I mean, we have been, we're got pretty good idea where we want the road to go, that maybe I could share with our city administrator, maybe in one of your touch-up meetings, you could look at that. I don't know, would that be an option? Or I don't want to get it out in the public too much until we get this thing sealed up. But
I do see Jamie raising your hand. You have
Jamie might have
something
more
to
to
offer?
comment on it.
Yeah, I was just wondering, when they said site designation, historical site designation, I was like, uh-oh, can we not do the road development now? Or mine was just wondering, how's that going to affect that project?
So the Canby Historical Society, Jamie Stigall, Economic Development Director, the Canby Historical Society and Depot Museum was added to our local register of historic resources, meaning it's a local heritage site. Before that process began, we spoke with Nora Clark, who is the president, about the potential for the redevelopment, that is something that we were considering. And the site itself is really just their building that is the historical site. So if the road were to change around it, that would not interfere with that building. Okay. Also, one of the things that I have learned with heritage efforts and historic preservation is that sometimes sites are moved, sometimes they are, removed, hopefully not too many in Canby. However, we have a really great example that we have the Mack House, which is on our local register of historic resources, and that was moved, I think, in 2014. The Hostettlers literally moved it just a couple of blocks down, so it's on Knott Street now. And so we actually have some experience with the physical movement of a historic site. That doesn't mean that the historic preservation element or the local register that goes away. It actually maintains the site and would stick there if for some reason it were to move, but I don't anticipate that would be an
It's
issue.
already moved once. It used to be downtown.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, I was just concerned that might hinder our progress in making that a safer intersection. So
we
okay.
really like where the building sits and where we have an idea where we want to put the road, and hopefully, well, we don't want to move the building. So
Right. I just want to make it a safer intersection.
good catch, and we want this
Okay.
project done.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry.
And thank you for allowing me to interject.
Yes. No, thank you, Jamie. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Old business is city attorney recruitment. We're
Nothing to
holding
report.
steady. Okay. Moving into mayor's business, as I kind of mentioned at the outset, this past weekend was a community memorial service for Frank Cutsforth, who had passed away, and it was pretty amazing turnout. I probably think we had over 500 people there for the service. It was very heartfelt, very much speaks to the impact that Frank has had on our community. And the only comment I want to make is I think both his daughter and Pastor Tim of Christ the King Church mentioned about showing up.
Showing up. Always showed up.
And, you know, and Miss Jamie Stickle and I were talking earlier that somebody in our community like Frank Cutsforth passing away leaves a tremendous hole in our community. It leaves a hole of time, of just personal human connection, and just overall care for the love for this community. And I think that even with, I think everyone that was there showing up for our community in any small portion still leaves a tremendous hole in our community of what he and really, I mean, the whole family does and has done for this community. So those of you that knew Frank and know the family, you know the impact that he has had on this community and that the family will continue to have. I have no doubt about that. I just ask that those of you know him, is to please show up.
They're the
Our
epitome.
community, when we talk about the small town atmosphere that we have here, it's because of people like Frank Cutsforth and Greg Perez and Scott Sassy and Jim Davis and Jason Pat. Like it's those people that it takes to make a community what it is. And as much as we're talking about with growth and change and where we're going as a city, we maintain that atmosphere because of the people, not the things we're building, not the things that we're putting up, not the businesses downtown or out in the industrial park. It is each person creating a human connection in every way possible and taking the opportunity to do so. There were some great stories. I think it was recorded. If you had a chance, if you want to hear them, I think a number of us were there and we'll gladly tell you the stories because there were tons more. I mean, Jamie and I were sharing stories earlier. So again, I just wanted to say that. That was Saturday. Sunday, I went to another memorial service for the mayor of Durham. Gary Sherrato had been the mayor of Durham for 27 years. He passed away from a battle with cancer. And it was interesting, such great stories for him as a mayor, but not to go and be the mayor of a community like Durham, Oregon. If you don't know where Durham is, it's where Bridgeport Shopping Center is. It's like right next door to it. You can't drive through, you have to drive through Durham to get to Bridgeport if you take the back roads. Not even, you know.
It's just a blip, yeah.
He, a tremendous mentor to a lot of mayors in the area, very involved on a regional and state level. So it was just going to something like that. And again, back-to-back days of memorial services, but the message being the same, two tremendous people showing up for their communities. So it was just really great. C4 front, can't say it was a whole lot of excitement at the last meeting. We did look at the long-range plan for TriMet. I will say, long-range plan for TriMet, and then the Clackamas Transit Service and stiff update on what monies could be available or what we're looking at. I was thoroughly dismayed that the TriMet and plan and even the stiff aspect of things, TriMet is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And for the amount of money that TriMet takes in, the lack of services that TriMet provides is really disappointing. Like our transit team, along with Sandy and South Clackamas and the other smaller transit providers, have a better coverage area than what TriMet provides to Clackamas County. And so Todd and your team, thank you for all that you guys do for Canby and the transit service. you are having to squeeze water from a rock on multiple times a year to do that and make it happen. And so I'd love a fraction of TriMet dollars to be able to pull off more than what we do. But that was a big thing at C4. The Region 1 Area Commission on Transportation, we just had an update on, most of it was just a discussion around chair and vice chair appointments, and then just some updates from the Region 1 manager. Our fabulous construction project on 99E came up, and I don't think that project's going to be done this year.
Oh, jeez.
So just wanted to share that little bit of joy with everyone this evening.
Lovely.
Well, didn't they say that it wasn't going to be until 2025?
I thought it was going to be done this fall, I guess not.
Yeah, no, it's well into 2025.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So,
Okay, I have a question.
That's what I've been telling people.
yeah,
I have a question then.
yes.
Is there any way, Jerry, is there any way ODOT can at least fill these potholes that are literally popping people's tires?
Oh,
It broke my rim.
Jerry, I don't even know if you need to come up for that one. I can answer that one.
Yeah.
No, they're not. That's
Oh,
going to
my
probably
Manta.
be my get, well, from what I understand, that falls to either they're not going to repair them anytime soon, or it's going to be until we're out of the cold season and moving out of the rainy season is what my understanding is.
Yeah,
Jerry?
if it's, yeah, that's it. I mean, it needs to be reported to ODOT, but if there is stuff that's dangerous, I mean, will
One down by
call
Walgreens and one in front of Fultanos. They're terrible.
Yeah, the one that.
You could lose a small car in
The
them.
one in front of O'Reilly's is like being investigated now. I've been called for pictures and stuff like that because our team had to go fill those.
Yeah.
And I really want to thank the ODOT maintenance team though, because they are trying and everything else, but it is a tough one. But please, when you see those, call them in to ODOT. And if it's a serious hazard, call me and I'll call the actual maintenance team. They're on-call people because they're keeping it on. And they'll come fill them, but just stay on them.
Oh, my.
Because they're just
Okay.
constant.
Thank you.
Yeah, because, I mean, not that I'm an expert on pothole filling, but the coal patch, it's not made to last.
Yeah.
I
And
mean, a warm up and a cool, and a freeze and then a warm up and then rain, it just washes it out.
Yep, and like your public works team, they don't do cold patch, they do hot mix and even as temporary, because it's cheaper, it lasts longer, but at night, we have cold patch for that type of stuff to put in there because you can't get, the batch plan isn't running. But nope, it's a tough situation out there. It's gonna be nice when it's done, but until then, it's gonna be brutal.
That's rough. Okay, thank you.
Well, just on that, if memory serves me correctly, we go into the Wayback Machine a few meetings ago. You said that the first freeze thaw event we have, 99E is going to explode.
Yep.
And so that's exactly what it did.
Yep, we have our bad roads do that, water mains break, it's really hard on the infrastructure, and it's too bad. And hopefully we don't have another freeze and they can get this under control, because it's a tough situation.
We know it's not you and your team, Jerry. We appreciate what you guys do.
But yeah, if there is like actual hazards where people are gonna hurt, or we want to jump in and help them people, but on the normal day-to-day stuff, we gotta go through ODOT.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, and I don't know what the attorney will say about any of that, but
He's grinning.
maybe he didn't hear me. Yeah.
Thank you, Jerry. Reminder to the council that Friday, the 16th is our day-long work session. I won't call it a retreat because there's no foofy drinks with umbrellas in them.
Thank you.
So.
No pool.
I did meet with our facilitator today. She has a really good idea of kind of what we're looking at and wanting to pull together. So I appreciate everyone that's met with her. I know we've got one or two that still need to meet.
I meet with her Monday.
But yeah, I think it's going to be a really, I'll use my least favorite word in the English language. It'll be a robust meeting. Finally, the State of the City address is going to happen on March 5th at the Chamber Luncheon. So please mark your calendar if you're interested in catching an update on what's been going on in the city the past year. We'll be reaching out to Eileen to talk about perhaps another, maybe an evening option for that as well for community members that are not in Canby during the lunch hour, you might want to catch it, but we will talk further about that. That is all that I have this evening. We will move on to council comments and liaison reports, and we're going to start with Council President Hensley.
We are?
Yeah.
Wow, that's weird. Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually don't have much in the way of liaison reports just yet because the Traffic Safety Commission doesn't meet until next week. But I do kind of want to tag on to what you were saying about Mr. Cutsforth's service. I was also in attendance, and it was very moving, very fitting of Frank. And showing up, it's the Canby way. The family is the epitome of the Canby way. And I was trying to put words to the Canby way. And it's just that everybody here kind of has everybody's back, and we show up, and we volunteer, and last week I was taking Eric home from work, and I drive down Ivy, and there's Heidi sitting in a bus waiting for a tow truck, and there's Spencer pushing the bus so that the tow truck can get to the bus. That's the Canby way. We just get it done. Then there's Mr. Perez, who's there on 2nd Avenue cleaning up tables and chairs after the street dance until ungodly hours of the night. It's the Canby way. And then we just need to live every day like that in honor of Frank and everyone in this committee, in this community that shows up. So that's all I have for today.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Maldonado. Okay, a little laryngitis, I hear. A little bit. Councilor Patton.
So again, I don't have any liaison reports at this point in time because it's a little early, but as far as things to mention, I did attend the chamber luncheon, which was really great. It was this sort of like speed networking thing. It was very interesting. I will say that of our group, after about person 3, we kind of went off the rails and just chatted because they were calling out times, but we weren't sure if it was the start time, the switch time. I wasn't know. So we just chatted. It was great. So that was good. I attended the community summit that was a couple of weeks ago as part of the comp plan. And there was some other folks there. The mayor was there as well as Mr. Sassy, or Councilor Sassy. And it went very, very well. It was extremely well attended. But one thing I will just throw out is that what I have witnessed in attending 2 of these is that there are 2 distinct groups that are showing up. One are the folks that are more interested in the activity, and one is folks that are, especially landowners, that are interested in having their voices be heard. And originally, early on in the process, those 2 meetings were sort of split. So there was a landowner meeting, and then there was the subsequent meeting. It might be good if maybe Don and them can sort of start to offer that landowner-specific one separately from the larger mapping program, so that way people, or Jamie, yeah, so that way those folks can be heard, because I kind of get the feeling that there's some frustration between those 2 groups when those are going on. So that's just something that I noticed.
Can I add to this? Is that
Sure.
join your council comment? You're correct that this meeting brought together people who are interested in participating in mapping the future of Canby, and we held 2 of those meetings in order to accommodate as many people as possible. There are different aspects to the comprehensive plan update, and one of those was first inviting the property owners whose property is being studied. So it's not to say that they are definitely being brought in, they're just being studied. We had a meeting here to kind of lay some of that groundwork to talk about what can and cannot happen. It doesn't mean if the urban growth boundary incorporates your property, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll be within city limits or have to annex. So those meetings will continue to happen. The community summits are community-wide. So we want property owners and people who are interested in mapping the future. But the listening sessions is what we're calling them with the property owners, those will continue as the process continues. And then the larger community summits will continue also. And the future summits, there's 2 to 3 more planned that will be community-wide, but also I think 2 to 3 more planned that will be just listening sessions with property owners. And then also if there is a property owner that you know who maybe doesn't feel like their voice has been heard or doesn't know the avenue to do so, they can always reach out to me or Don Hardy, either one, and we'd be happy to make sure that their information and their comments are collected.
Jamie, if you would, those two, the one in November and then the one just in January, those were mapping exercises, but the next couple of outreach sessions, they aren't going to be mapping exercises.
correct.
They're going to be something else.
Right. So we did the first community summit that we held was just a kickoff to kind of lay the foundation, not specific to landowners, not specific to even if you live within city limits. It was if you're involved in the community, and those community summits are growing, the awareness is growing. So yes, that will continue down the process, but we won't hold another mapping session. And in fact, the only reason we held 2 is just because we had such a great, such a great amount of the community show up to the first one that we held a second one, and then we had a really great showing at that as well.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to drive home is that I think there's 2 distinct groups, as I had mentioned in that.
Yeah.
And maybe it would have been wise to leapfrog the things. So we do the landowners, we do the mapping, have another landover, have another mapping.
That's planned.
Because what I think is what I read from the meetings that I've gone to is there is some tension between the 2 groups.
Sure.
And if there is some way moving forward to make sure that not one group is being dealt with in the beginning and one group is being dealt with later, to try and make sure that no one feels like the other group is railroading their ability to participate in the other thing, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
However
So
you guys do it is fine.
Yeah, that process, it's running concurrently. So
Yeah.
like with the listening session that we held here with the property owners, that was held, I think, November 6th. Then the second community summit was held November 15th. So making sure that that's all running at the same time. For some people, it's the same information they're hearing twice. And that's actually a good thing. It's a lot of very, big ideas and big concepts. So, sometimes they're getting the same information. Sometimes it's slightly different. A property owner who's, might have an issue with the process, that might be a different message than someone who is coming to kind of listen on how it's growing. But yes, that outreach is running concurrently. And we also have, just the list of interested parties that we try and keep up to date so that as the process moves forward, we're able to message that to everybody who's interested.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so no, it's been a very interesting process, and I'm glad that we're going through it. So that's that. I also got a chance to attend the Clackamas City's dinner meeting that the city hosted, which was great. And it was good to hear from some of our legislators about what's going on and what is coming up in the short session, and that sort of thing. I did mention at a previous meeting, and this tags along with the 99E exploding thing, having a button for a form on our website or some sort of direct link where if someone goes to our website and says, oh, I'm 99E, and it's like right there, problem with 99E, click this button, and it goes to a form and it goes right to ODOT. So that way, it's not like having to filter all through this every time. Because I watch the Canby Facebook groups. I try to explain to people that they need to go to ODOT, and sometimes they do or don't listen. So if there's a way to kind of, I'm just going to continue to beat that drum to see if we can get some sort of button on there.
That seems pretty easy, I would think.
Well, it's internet stuff, it's web page stuff, and it's all voodoo to me. And then the last thing is I'm really excited. So this kind of came through a citizen comment that I ran into a citizen at a holiday party or Christmas party. And they were talking about expanded recycling services here in Canby. And some people might be familiar with Ridwell. So Ridwell is a service that you can pay, and they come and they take a lot of the recyclable, the non-recyclable material that you can't put in your gray bin here in Canby. And he had mentioned that he had chatted with Eileen, and so I then kind of inserted myself into the conversation, and it turns out that there's a county service that is similar to it called Recycle Plus. And Canby is now a part of that, which is great. I contacted them earlier this week and signed up. So the number, if you're interested, so the Recycle Plus program will take like clothing and fabric materials and stuff that would not otherwise go to the thrift store because you don't want to give them garbage because they just end up throwing it out. So you can recycle those things. The clamshells, so a lot of the things that are wish cycled, so like the little clamshells and the things that you get your rotisserie chickens in, and the potato salad from Cuts Force and stuff, those containers you could put in there. And then also plastic bags other than, like plastic film other than plastic grocery bags. So bubble wrap, the little pillows. I'm not sure, probably saran wrap if it's clean, but like Ziploc bags and food bags and things like that are all stuff that can go in there. It's like $2 and some odd cents a month. You get a purple bin with bags, and then the bags you fill in with your items, and then when it's full, you call, and it's your area has a biweekly service call. They come and pick it up, and then it's $9 and some odd cents to come and pick up the bin. On top of the monthly. But what's interesting is in David, the gentleman who brought this to our attention, we were doing the math, and it's actually cheaper to do the Recycle Plus program than Ridwell, because Ridwell's monthly fee is higher and their pickup fee is a little higher. So in the end, it's actually cheaper to do this. The one thing, the number to call if you're interested is 503-436-3060. The number again is 503-436-3060, and they will get everything set up and deliver the bin. They made it very clear that the bins are very purple, and apparently people are all about purple bins, and so they tend to get stolen fairly readily. So make sure to put your address and stuff on your bin after you get it, so that way if it goes walking away and it's found somewhere else, it can get returned to you. So I'm really excited to see that come up. Back in the day, I used to take my funky recycling or weird recycling to a place in Beaverton on my route to work, and they closed up. And so it's nice to be able to have this program here in Canby. This is a county program, yes. So it's through Clackamas County, correct?
Yes, it is.
Yes, and they kind of partner with the waste disposal companies.
Right.
Because of the franchise agreements and stuff, people can't be stepping on each other's toes and stuff. So, yeah, so that's that. And that's all I had.
Okay, thank you, sir. Councilor Sassy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I went to Canby Heritage Landmark Committee, and I went into that meeting with a real conundrum. I walked in, there was 3 people, and that was it. And I thought, did I miss the meeting? But it worked out at the end. So they had a gentleman, Spencer from Northwest Vernacular, talked. They are going to update their 2009 master plan, because a lot of the properties, Pudding River is still on First Avenue. It is not, is it 1440 South Ivy? And Valentine's is around the corner.
Shameless promotion.
Local Parks Grant is helping fund this survey. There are 140 properties local. They have to be 45 years or older. The first survey goes out and is back by March 29th. The final report will be June 28th. And Carol Palmer would like to have a public meeting sometime in May. And they really need members. They only have 4, and they need 3 more, and they really need some help. So if you're out there, people my age in Canby, I know who you are. You know properties too. Get on there. It's kind of interesting. It really is. So. And then the library, the only update they have is they are shifting opening hours to be open later as of March 4th. So now during the week, they will be open till 7. And on Friday, Saturday, we open till 5. And that's all I have.
Very good.
Thank you, sir. Counselor Stearns.
Push the button. Couple things. I do have a meeting with Miguel on Monday still to go over for Bridging Cultures, so that I'm going to start actually being the liaison for that. I've been it for a while, but they haven't had a director, and it's gotten in the way. I went to the Transit Committee meeting, and that was good. Getting my son, who's 14 years old, to start using the Transit Committee, or Transit, the Canby Loop, so we don't have to drive him around so much. And so that's a good thing that those of you who have kids, it's a very good resource to have. And he's already starting to use it. And don't have to do that. The Bike and Pedestrian Committee will meet next week, so I'll have something to report next meeting on that. One thing I just kind of wanted to just maybe bring awareness to is probably something people are already kind of aware of, but I was meeting with some clients this last week, and especially talking to a young single mother, and they live on South Locust, and they don't feel safe there. And I know there's probably a lot of reasons for that, some of them that we can address as a council, some of them we probably can't address. But I at one point lived there, and you don't feel that safe living there either at that point. I mean, in a sense, you feel more safe because the police are always there if you need them, but that's maybe not a good way to do. And so just a reminder, there are places in Canby where people are scared to live, and there needs to be something sort of, whether we can fix it or not, maybe we can at least make it a little bit better than it is, even if we can't fix it entirely, that particular area. And then there's some other areas in Canby too, where I think it's the same way, but I know that personally, having lived there, having, basically inebriated people knocking on the door at night, assisting people in there with helping communicate with the police, those kind of things. And I'm sure the fire department may have occasion to visit that area as well. So I just wanted to bring that up, and I mentioned I was a city councilor, and she said, well, you should bring it up because my goal in life is to get to the point where I can move away from that area of Canby, which isn't a really good endorsement for that area of Canby anyway. So that's just one.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, the Canby Adult Center, their meeting is next week. However, going up there, and we serve lunch up there on Monday, every Monday, and I know Kathy gives reports, but their Valentine's luncheon is full. Pretty much all their special event luncheons are full, and most of their tours are full too. So they're busting at the seams up at the Canby Adult Center, and Kathy's doing a great job in regards to the activities that are happening at the Adult Center, and I'll bring you more after our next meeting next week. Park and Rec, boy, a lot of stuff happening at Park and Rec. It's a fun liaison to be to as far as the committee is hard at work. This last meeting, we did have a presentation from David Carnegie, who has been working with our Public Works Division in regards to doing a lot of blackberry cleanup volunteer work down at Community Park. He showed pictures of the amount of debris that they've eliminated with blackberry bushes down at Community Park, with numerous volunteer hours down there. Spoke praise to our Public Works Department, who also came and picked up a lot of the debris and stuff and delivered bark and sand and stuff like that. They do have a Boy Scout project that's happening down there as well, but they're replanting natural plants. And so if you haven't had a chance to go down there and see what they're doing, it's really, really cool. I rode my bike through there the other day just to check it out. And the new restrooms look awesome down there. I know they're not connected yet, will be soon. But if you haven't seen the new restrooms down at Community Park, they are going to be awesome. as far as the work that's been done down there with the restrooms. Jerry gave an update in regards to the various projects, Community Park, and about a month or so, or a little bit more in regards to getting the sewer connections to the bathrooms and stuff, but they've put some porta potties down there for people to use, even though it's still closed. People are still walking in there and using it, so that's great. Auburn Farms, thank you for moving the Auburn's Farm project forward, and thank you to Jerry and Eileen for getting these projects and keeping them in the forefront. We're going to be seeing the Maple Street Park project here probably at our next meeting, hopefully. It's all dependent upon some electrical issues that they're trying to resolve with Canby Utility so that that can come in front of council so that we can be prepared to move those projects forward and have everything in line for July 1st is the projected date for that project as well. And then Kara Hawkins, it continues to report on, which eventually the council will see, is on park benches and trees, memorials that can be planted and or put with memorials that people want to pay for. And so you guys will be seeing that as well. The big news is that Cogeo, Patrick Sampson called me this week, and there are renderings that have been completed, and he's very excited to present those to the council. And I've talked to Eileen about this as well, but we want to pull together the city staff group again to review the renderings and what the next step is to move that project forward. And I'll leave it up to Eileen as far as the need for an executive session versus open session for that park project to move that project forward. But you'll recall that this is huge for our community, huge, not only for our kids that need places to practice and play, but for our downtown businesses as well, to increase business. So I really hope that this is something that on our goal setting, we put as a high priority to move forward for our community. But we need to continue to move on this. I can't stress that enough in regards to this project, because if we don't, the potential is good that we could lose it out of our community. And I understand it's a big planning project as we move forward, because, okay, it's easy to say, okay, let's get the land, let's get it built, but then how do we maintain it and stuff? So we've got to have those discussions as well, you know, for the planning for the future. But it's time that we move forward with this. I mean, the citizens want it, the business community wants it, you know, so whatever we can do as a council to keep this project moving forward, I'd really appreciate it. That's it.
Okay, thank you. City Administrator, business and staff reports.
Okay, council, you have knocked off a few of the items that I was going to touch base on, so that's great. So what's left is, so your ethics training, I've been in touch with the person who would be putting that on or organizing it. And I'm wondering if you are all available on a Tuesday evening at the end of February, February 27th is one night that the trainer is available. So if you can let me know or check your calendars and let me know.
What time?
Probably 6 to 8.
Okay.
The 27th. Okay, how about the 28th? That's another possibility. If
Either's fine for me.
I will not be back on this continent until the 1st. So, yeah. I mean, if it's, is there going to be like a remote possibility?
There won't be a remote possibility, but for those who can't make it on that night or some other night that we designate, apparently the ethics staff, these trainings are held once a month.
In Salem, right?
in Salem.
Yeah.
So you could also attend that way. But everybody who was, who received that stipulated order, even those that aren't on the council any longer, still have to go through the training. So you can't get out of it.
Yeah.
Well, the 27th and the 28th were identified as possible nights that the ethics staff trainer would come here. So that's what we were trying for, is to have our own customized training session. But again, if you can't, then there are the generic ones. You can do the 27th.
So 28th is better than 27th for me, but I'm not part of the stipulated order, so I guess if I miss it, I could just make my own mistakes.
No, you don't want to do that. It is not a fun process.
I can do either, so.
You can do
whatever is the pleasure of the rest of you.
Herman, you said the 20, you can do either, but the 27th is. Okay,
I'm good with either.
I'm good with either.
either.
And
Either.
Eileen, are we still going to be able to invite our partner agencies as well? The fire
Yeah, I wanted to
district,
make
Canby
sure
Utility?
that you all, that we got it, at
Yeah.
a time that was convenient for you all
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
And then we would send out the invite.
Okay,
Once the
thank you.
date gets set.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm going to lean towards the 27th because I have a conflict on the 28th and I want to make sure that I'm here to take that training with you all.
6 to 8 here.
Yeah,
On the 27th? Okay, I'll write it down.
okay.
Could you send a meeting invite for that too, please?
I definitely will.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm. Speaking of grants, there's a couple of grants that I've been working on this week and last week and the week before that were both, well, one has been submitted, and that is for the city-led homelessness grant program that Clackamas County is making available $5 million to local communities in Clackamas County. The total grant request that we submitted was $1.2 million. It includes funding for a library program, police department, and then the Canby Center. So I think I sent that out to you, I'm happy to go through those projects if you want now, or I can do it at some other time. But the total grant that we submitted was $1.2 million. So we'll see if we get it. A portion of that is for the behavioral health specialist. For continued funding of the behavioral health specialist, Clackamas County suggested that we use this funding source for that rather than the opioid settlement. So we applied for that, or we worked that into this grant request as well. So the other thing.
Eileen, quick
Yes.
question, the adult center portion, what was that for? The grant? What was-
So that's what I was going to mention. The other thing that I'm working on with Kathy is a BRIC grant, and I can't remember what BRIC stands for right now, but it's a federal infrastructure program. And this is through FEMA. This is for emergency funds for projects that are developing infrastructure that's related to emergency services. So we're looking at the possibility of asking for about $500,000 right now in BRIC funding. They are on the tail end of allocating 2023 dollars, and we're going to try to hit that deadline, which is by the end of February. So we're pushing really hard to try to hit that deadline. If not, we're in a good position to resubmit for January or for June. And so we want to in as much as we have made an allocation of ARPA dollars to this project already, we're trying to make sure that we get that money in time to be spent so that we don't miss out on the use of the ARPA dollars too, because those have a timeline associated with them. So we're pushing, Kathy's doing most of the work, we're pushing pretty hard, and we'll see. And if not, we'll apply for next year's grant program, so. Wanted to cycle back with council on the issue of liquor licenses and the food court that came up. And the question that was asked last time was whether or not discussions about liquor came up during the food cart, the pod cart processing. It did come up. And the conclusion that staff reached was that that the state liquor license process was sufficient to address any issues. And so it wasn't ultimately addressed in our local code. The idea was that that it would be addressed by going through the typical channels for a liquor license permit. So I just wanted you to know that. And then, Jamie, do you want to mention the first Thursday if you're here? Okay.
I would love that.
Great.
Yeah, Jerry. So Eileen had asked for, if there were any kind of updates. And one of the things, I know that we talk a lot about First Thursday. It's not a new concept. It had previously been First Friday. But we had a really great First Thursday, just February 1st. So just as background for all of those tens of people that are watching at home, First Thursday occurs the first Thursday of every month. It happens year-round, 5 to 8 p.m., and it's for local businesses to stay open late, potentially offer a special or some sort of, it could be a coupon or a different sort of reason for people to come in the door. The reason that we hold events like this isn't necessarily to get the cash register ringing, which of course we hope happens. And I know whenever I go to First Thursday, it rings quite a bit. But it's really to get people familiar with the businesses, familiar with coming to downtown, which sounds kind of like a funny thing, but it's easy to say, oh, I'm just gonna go to Fred Meyer or I'm gonna go to Clackamas Town Center. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you can shop local and it makes an impact in your community, those dollars stay in Canby longer and they really make a huge impact. So this past First Thursday, it happened to be, blue skies, great weather, and the activity downtown was very visible. Usually January and February are quieter months. We had over 20 businesses participating. And then the businesses that participate routinely in First Thursday, they also attend planning meetings so that they can kind of plan for the future, identify what works, also identify what doesn't work. And through those meetings, they came up with the concept of a scavenger hunt, which is, actually to get people to move around. Then those businesses give maybe a gift card or an item for a grand prize. And we had 34 completed scavenger hunts for First Thursday in February, which is, it's unusual. And I know 34 might not sound like a lot, but it is so unusual that it's worth, kind of singing the praises of the efforts. Tyler Nizer is in charge of those efforts, and he is downtown on Northwest 2nd during First Thursday, as well as obviously at City Hall Monday through Friday. And so if there's a business that's interested in participating, even if they're not downtown, we'll find a way to make it work. And if you haven't attended for a while, or if you haven't attended ever, please come downtown on First Thursday. There's a lot of fun happening, and it only gets better as the weather warms up and the season continues on. So, yes.
Typically, how much later are they staying open?
Well, I would say that a lot of businesses close at 6 o'clock, maybe 5 o'clock. So we encourage that they stay open till 8. If a business was going to close at 5 p.m. and they said, but I really want to participate in First Thursday, I don't know how to make that happen, we would work with them to make sure that whatever kind of special or, unique item that they had during the day, that we would promote that as well. It's no cost for businesses to participate. And it's really, the goal is to make the promotion or the event work for the businesses to draw people in. So sometimes a business will do their own kind of sub-event. You know, I always say everybody knows somebody's kid who plays a guitar, and maybe they want to play in a local, you know, a local business. Gwen's Coffee House participates, and they do a game night for families. So you can go and you can get a cup of coffee. They have some charcuterie boards that they do, and then you can play games with your family. So just a different, some of it is just different ways of thinking about how a business can be involved in the community and giving people a reason to come in and engage. Our Canby Cinema has participated several times. Free movies, and you know, if you have the golden ticket, then you can go to the free movie. I think the last time that they did that, they had 150 people come in for First Thursday to see that movie, and that's a huge win. And that might be 150 people who also needed a bite to eat ahead of time, or thought, oh, I need that grocery at Cutsforth. And you know, when they're out and they're walking, you know, it really just encourages that community spirit, and I think it's something that the city has put a lot of time and effort into, and it's great to see the benefits, not just during the months where it's nice out, but also in the February month, so.
Yeah, I love the idea. I think it's great, get people out of hibernation, get them out and back into the eyeball of everybody else again.
Absolutely, and create the habit too, so that's why we do it year round. It's just so that it's like, oh, it's First Thursday, I'm gonna go check things out and see what's going on. So thank you, guys.
Jamie?
Thank you, Jamie. The last item I have is, as you know, we have 6 openings on the Budget Committee, on the City Budget Committee, and 7 on the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee. So get out there and shake the bushes, and let's get those.
6 openings, or we have 4 openings?
We have 4 openings. Thank you. Yes, 4 openings.
Okay,
Yes.
and 5 for.
And 5 on the Urban Renewal Agency. Thank you. Yes.
I'm working.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Are in here.
Next opportunity for citizen input. Seeing none. Action review.
You have approved the consent agenda, adopted ordinance number 1616, and approved ordinance number 1617 to a second reading on February 21st, 2024.
Excellent. And I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are adjourned, Canby. Thank you. Good night.